Hey guys, this is Eric Young, and you're listening to Booking the Territory.
Hey, this is Ring of Honor superstar Donovan Dijak, and you're listening to Booking the Territory Pro Wrestling Podcast.
This is a one-man gang. You're listening to Booking the Territory Pro Wrestling Podcast.
This is Booking the Territory, a pro wrestling podcast hosted by Mike Mills, Hardbody Harper from Wildcat Sports and Entertainment, and the mentally irregular Doc Turner. This podcast is a mix of your topics and thoughts in the world of pro wrestling, along with interviews and discussions with current independent stars and your favorite stars from the past. And now, here's your host, Mike Mills.
Welcome back, everyone, for this week's episode of Booking the Territory Pro Wrestling Podcast. We are the pro wrestling podcast where pro wrestling's past meets pro wrestling's present. We are recording this episode on Thanksgiving morning, November the 24th, 2016. So if you're listening on Thanksgiving Day, we hope you have a great Thanksgiving. And if you're listening after, we hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving. And if you're listening anywhere else in the world and you don't celebrate Thanksgiving, and you're a part of our international audience, well, we hope you enjoy this week's Thanksgiving episode. We got some ROH topics up for discussion this week. We got a little Raw, maybe some SmackDown. Depends how I'm feeling, because I'm still salty on the WWE product, and so is Doc. Matter of fact, Doc didn't even fucking watch that shit, but we'll get to that in a second. This week's top 5 is the top 5 belts of all time, based on looks, prestige, and importance. And lastly, I am talking to former Smoky Mountain Wrestling heavyweight champion Bobby Blaze during the last half of this show, which is going to be a 2-part discussion. We got Bobby with part 1 this week, and part 2 will be next week. But before we get to it all, let me welcome in the best co-hosts there are in the business of podcasting. Fuck other co-hosts. No, I'm just kidding. But the world's greatest wrestling manager, one of them, not named Paul Heyman, Hardbody Harper from Wildcat Sports and Entertainment, and everybody's favorite mentally irregular asshole, Doc Turner. Doc, what's going on, man? How you doing? Happy fucking Thanksgiving, bitch.
Gobble, gobble, motherfucker.
That's the best you got. Okay.
Yeah. Hey, you know. Here's the thing. I'm off my game already because it's game day. Y'all can think about turkey and everything else because y'all season is damn near over. But for me, the Dallas Cowboys are about to go to 10-1, and it's serious business today.
I hope those fuckers win the Super Bowl, because if they don't, I'm gonna fucking troll you like no tomorrow. Because I hate you fucking bastards. Fuck y'all Cowboy fans.
Michael Irvin wants them to lose today.
Why? So they get a wake-up call?
Yeah.
They do need a wake-up call, because if there's some conceited bastards like Doc Turner out there. And I don't hate all Cowboy fans. I hate fucking Doc Turner because he's a fucking conceited prick.
So anyway, I didn't listen to last week's show. You know, I was away on business. I was covering an event as a roving reporter for BTT. So I didn't listen to the show because basically, I like Nate, but I don't listen to this show when I'm not on it. So I was just wondering, did your buddy Chip chime in and come back and visit us after his Steelers took it in the old
bunghole
in the brown eye from the Cowboys in their home building, and we put a dent in their playoff future? I just wonder if Chip chimed in.
We did not hear from Chip last week, but he sent an email. It's funny you asked because I don't have this on the agenda, but he sent an email, and I got it like at 2 o'clock in the morning when I opened up my email this morning, and it said, it said, and I quote, "I know Doc is coming back this week, but fuck him and fuck the Cowboys." And that was it.
Fuck is good.
He was salty. What'd you say, Harper?
That's real nice, man. What a class act.
He was salty as fuck on that.
You know what we're going to do today? We're going to treat the Redskins just like the Pilgrims treated the Redskins back in the day.
Oh my God! Why would you say that? That's so uncalled for.
Hey, hold on, Pocahontas.
Y'all should give them some smallpox blankets.
Hey, hold on, Pocahontas. I know you're chilly, but before I give you this blanket, let me cough in it a few times.
Will you please tell the people you're joking, because we have Native American listeners, and I don't want them to think. We got Native American listeners.
Chief Jay Strongbow?
Actually, let me tell a story. So this whole giving out a blanket thing, Doc and I talk about this at work because just like you're going to hear in part 2 with Bobby Blaze with his book Pin Me, Pay Me, Doc and I use these, I guess you can call them colloquies all the time at work where we'll go, pin me, pay me, and that's when our bosses tell us something to do. It's like, I'm not going to argue with you. Just pin me, pay me. Fine, I'll do what you want, boss, whatever. I'll shine your shoes, I'll lick your boots, whatever you want. Well, when we get to talking about to make the same example, we talk about the Native Americans and how the white man just fucking took America. And if you don't believe that, I don't know what else to tell you. I'm a historian, not just a wrestling historian, even though I'm not a good wrestling historian. But basically, the white man came to America and took a whole land and robbed the whole land from people. I mean, it is what it is. But anyway,
we didn't even and we're going to recreate that this afternoon at about 3:30 Central Time.
So whatever. So Doc will always say, "Yep, the bosses are handing out blankets today," basically saying they're giving out blankets with smallpox and they're killing the towns and killing the people. But it's a bad joke, but it's actually, if you live in corporate America and you work in corporate America, you'd really understand it. So
you got to do something to stay sane out there. It's a fucking jungle in the cube farms.
Yeah, man. Trust me on that one. The shit.
Hey, man, enough about
but anyway,
where we work. You ain't even got over to see how Harper was doing. He wasn't here last week either.
Yeah.
No, Harper wasn't here last week. He was doing official Wildcat business. So yeah, he was doing commentary. He's a big superstar now. What the fuck, man? Hey, we're lucky when we get him. Let me just say that.
Yeah. That was last week.
Yeah, it was last week. Look, he's been drunk so many times since then he don't remember.
Freaking Joe Gardner.
I got to talk to Luke because I want to get Joel on the show. But anyway, let's get down to the brass tacks here and talk about some fucking wrestling and what we watched and didn't watch this week. So here's the thing. We're going to start off with Impact. I'll give you a quick update, and I'll let Doc tell me what he thought of last week's episode because I haven't watched it yet. Too much shit going on. I'm coaching kids and shit, and I'm keeping busy. So Impact did a 336,000 viewers on the November 17th episode. Doc, you weren't too high on this week's Impact, were you?
No, I know we've been blowing them for the past several months, and we've been hoping that they could be the little engine that takes the wrestling train over the hill to bring territory type wrestling back to the fans on the other side of the mountain. But this episode wasn't as good. I think they're still doing some great stuff. Matt Hardy is still doing some fantastic stuff back in his vignettes at home where he's got amnesia. And Rebby was looking particularly delicious at home, helping to try to get him out of his amnesia. But they did a couple of things that I don't like. One of them is that they're doing the King of the Mountain or whatever that is now, that title that Aaron Rex has. But now they're turning Aaron Rex heel, and unless I've missed something on the show, I don't really know why. And so I don't know. He came in and he was going to be the big name and the savior and do it. You always do it for the people, and you don't forget that the people are the reason why you're here. And less than 3 months later, he's turning heel. So I don't particularly like that. He's now feuding over that belt with Jesse Goddard's, which is a problem in and of itself. And then they fought for the title and they abandoned the rules about the rounds, which I don't like the rules about the rounds, but if you're going to have a stipulation, you should probably stick to the stipulation. So anyway, I thought that was a little goofy.
They can abandon that round shit, if you ask me. I mean, I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah.
That shit's stupid, bro.
Right, that shit is for the birds. I mean, and it's funny, man, because I told you we got listeners over in the UK where that's supposed to be the thing over there, and they're like, I don't like fucking rounds. I don't like rounds in wrestling. That shit's dumb.
Yeah. So the other thing here is, Mike, you've been pretty high on the build and the potential for the DCC, the new faction. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, actually, I'm up through the week before last's episode, and I thought up until that point they were doing good. I didn't have any complaints about what they were doing.
So I like them as a faction. I like 2 of the 3 guys. The third guy I don't really know, but we'll give him a shot. But they're now kind of integrated into the show, which means instead of just showing up in the ring, they've got an entrance, and that means they've got entrance music.
Oh, yeah, I don't like that.
So here's where they've messed up. And this is the most annoying thing on Impact in a long time. I guess in an homage to James Storm's country music roots, and then trying to be hip and with the times, the song they come out to is a mishmash country music / rap / synthesizer music mashup.
Oh, that's great.
and it is awful, and it is terrible. And by the time they
great,
yeah, I know I built it up like WrestleMania, but by the time they get to the ring, I just want them to like go away. So I'm afraid they may have really put a dent in that gimmick for me. So again, there's some things on the show that I thought were good. EC3 won a 4-way bout and is now the new number 1 contender. He's doing some jaw jacking with Eli Drake, which is good because Eli Drake they're getting ready to fight again. So there's some good things, but for the first time in a while, there were some things on Impact that made me say, uh-oh, that's not as good as, I mean, it's not just things I can overlook. So we're going to hold them accountable just like we hold everybody else accountable.
Yeah, and I don't want people to think we're fanboys for them, but even then, I still think their product's better. Well, again, I haven't seen this week, so I can't totally give that judgment on it, but I still think it's better than WWE.
Well, Mike, I can't tell you because is this the part of the show where we go around and tell what we're thankful for since it's Thanksgiving? Because I'm ready.
Well, let's do this. I got a CM Punk topic and I got an ROH topic, but let me just tease. I'm thankful for the fact that I didn't watch 1 second of WWE this week, so if that's going to be a problem, I may need to go ahead and hang up. I don't think it'll be a problem because I got a couple of notes from what I saw. But I know Harper texted me on Tuesday night, I guess when SmackDown was on, and said something about you were tired of the interviews when a cell phone would ring, and
yeah,
did that mean you were watching it at that point in time?
I watched it for like 5 minutes and I changed the channel. I was like, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it.
Bruh. So Doc was texting me on Monday night and I was passively watching it. When I say passively, it was on in the background while I was doing other shit. So I caught like a few things. SmackDown, I did not watch Tuesday night. I was on the phone with Bobby Blaze. We were conducting the interview for the show This Week and Next. And I will say this much. My conversation with him was much more entertaining and enlightening about professional wrestling than anything that SmackDown could have done, because I then did watch SmackDown last night on Hulu, which was about an hour and 20 minutes. And just in a nutshell, fucking AJ Styles lost again in a ladder match he didn't get pinned.
Oh, yeah, I saw that, yeah.
But he lost in a ladder match to James Ellsworth, who won a contract. Now, don't get me wrong. I like the fact that James Ellsworth got a contract. But I just was like, wow, this is 3 times now they beat AJ. He's your fucking champion, dude. Now, they didn't pin him, so I guess they're listening to us. He technically didn't get pinned. But anyway, that's 3. Look, everybody out there listening, I don't want to fucking skull drag WWE. I was in the business as an indie guy, and I am a pro wrestling fan since I'm 5 years old in 1980. I watched and grew up on Mid-South. I love professional wrestling, and that's why I do this. I don't want to fucking skull drag these bastards. But when they produce shit on a platter to me, I'm just going to turn my fucking nose to it. I don't know what else to say. It's harder and harder to watch, and Doc and I said this a couple weeks ago, I think, on the show. We don't want to be negative. We don't want to fucking come on here and talk negative for 90 minutes at a time. So that's why we've been trying to avoid the topic. So anyway, I say all that to say, again, AJ, 3 times he's lost to James Ellsworth now, I believe it is. So, whatever.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it again if I was him. I'd be like, no.
Right.
No.
I'm not wrestling this match. And I mean, the thing was, in this match, because of the way they did it, they didn't to me, they didn't bury AJ. Like, they buried him more in the other one, in the other ones. But it's just like, damn, man. I mean, he's your champion. You're making a fucking comedy skit out of him. It's just, I'm just burnt out with it. So, yeah,
that's what happens when you get a bunch of pasty-faced comedy writers trying to pop a 70-year-old man who lives in a wrestling bubble in Connecticut, United States.
There you go. All right, Doc. So let's go to ROH because things are heating up, and look, full disclosure, I have not seen it. Doc has watched it. I know Harper probably hasn't watched it, but the reason
Hey, hold on. We got late breaking news on that ROH front.
What's up?
Why?
I read either yesterday or earlier this morning, Steve Corino is leaving ROH as the color commentator and taking a full-time position down at NXT as a trainer.
Yeah, I saw that. Wade Keller tweeted it out, and I retweeted it. I saw that he's leaving. I don't know what to think about that. But you know, it doesn't surprise me because I think it was last week he was down at the Performance Center doing some stuff down there. So it in hindsight, you look at that and you go, well, it kind of was coming. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but here's the thing. Like, I'm not the biggest fan. I like Corino just fine. I'm not the biggest fan of him on color commentating, So I think it might be good to have a fresh voice in the booth with Kevin Kelly. The thing I didn't like is they got the angle with Kevin Sullivan and B.J. Whitmer and Punishment Martinez and all that, and I kind of I kind of wonder where they're going to go with that now, and I was kind of intrigued by that, but whatever, we'll keep it going.
Well, when it comes to ROH, when it comes to TV angles, it's not like they're telling stories. It's just you know what I'm saying. They don't.
Yeah.
And that's not me knocking. It's just what they are. They're not episodic.
They're not beholden to anything. They're not beholden to anything like linear logic in their plot lines.
No, they're not, because they're a pro. They're, how can I explain it? They are
bunch of spot monkeys.
No, that's not that, because they got good talent there, and I don't think they're all spot monkeys. They do work fast, but their whole thing is you tune in to watch guys wrestle, not necessarily as much storylines.
Hey, Mike, I forgot to tell you.
Yeah.
Back on TNA, but I'm going to tie the thread back from ROH to TNA. So they show Matt Hardy at a vignette at his house, and he's sitting at his computer deleting emails. So he's just going delete, 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 and pushing the delete button. And he goes, Young Bucks newsletter. I don't even like rock and roll, and then hits delete. So he worked in the Young Bucks again.
I've seen him with his amnesia and engineer and Senior Benjamin giving him directions on how to build a new living room, and it's fucking quite comical on the last couple of episodes before this one. So yeah, it's some good stuff. But look, ROH. So you wanted to talk about it because I think we got a couple of things heating up with Jay Lethal and Cody Rhodes, and then we got Vinny and the Kingdom. So previous show guests, Vinny Marseglia and the Kingdom in the finals of the six-man tourney, and then Colt Cabana has turned heel against Dalton Castle. So I'll let you take over for a couple minutes and tell the good people why you like what's going on or don't.
Oh, well, I thought the last episode was better than it's been in a while. So a couple of things. One is it appears based on the last episode that at the next pay-per-view, which I guess is Final Battle, Jay Lethal is going to fight Cody Rhodes, and while it remains to be seen if there's any real personal issues here or any, no belts on the line, I would assume that would be a pretty good match by two guys that know how to work. So that's pretty interesting that it's sitting out there in the future. Once again, the BTT rocket ship, once it gets strapped to your back, you go straight to the top. Vinny is a member of the Kingdom, the new reformed Kingdom with Matt Taven. He is now in the finals of the six-man tournament against, Kushida and ACH, and I think Jay White. I would assume that they will go over in that and be the first inaugural six-man champs. So more gold into the BTT family.
Yeah, you had something to do with that, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Fuck out of here.
Well, we've got a former indie jobber, the greatest current manager in the wrestling business, and the greatest podcaster in the business, and now we've got six-man gold in ROH.
So stupid. You're so stupid. I hate to spoil it for people. I don't know if they're going to win it or not, but I can tell you this much. Mike Johnson did report when they made their debut, the new Kingdom, I'll call them, with Vinny and Matt Taven and Tiki O'Ryan. I think Mike Johnson said they were in store for a major push, and that was all he said. I mean, there was nothing else said, but he did mention those words. In store for a major push is what I think he said.
All right. And then finally is a pretty interesting angle that they're pulling off here with two guys that can do comedy but can also wrestle, and so that's a good mix because and that is Dalton Castle and Colt Cabana. So in last week's episode, the week before, those guys tagged up and lost, and Dalton was all upset because he couldn't find his boys to accompany him to the ring. And so this week, Colt Cabana got him some other boys that look like indie, local guys that came out and served the role. And one of them had a beard, and so it was a little bit different. So they win, and Dalton Castle's like, hey, grabs him like, hey, I think we've got something here. I think we should, we're starting to get our chemistry going. I think we should be a tag team and go for the gold. And Cabana's like, nah, I'm not really feeling that, bruh. We're done. You let me hit it from behind and pop a nut inside you. I don't wanna...
Jesus Christ!
What?
Come on!
What?
I mean, what is that?
I'm just saying he got his and he's out.
Okay, let's move on.
So then Colt's like, hey, no hard feelings. It's just, it's not you, it's me kind of thing, and starts to leave, but then turns around and jumps Dalton. So I would imagine they're going to have a program, but also it turns Colt heel. So we'll see where that goes. But it was a pretty interesting episode.
Business means business is business, as Tim Horner says on Smoky Mountain Wrestling.
I don't know what that. No.
Okay. Never mind. And let's move on.
I'm shameless.
Oh my! Hey, and if you haven't checked out our Smoky Mountain Wrestling episodes, it's getting better fucking downloads than this show, which is the flagship show of PTT. So I don't know if that really says a lot for this show, but it says a lot for the Smoky Mountain show. Moving right along. Hey, and if anybody's wondering why I did not put Bobby Blaze on the Smoky Mountain show, it's because Doc and I have recorded basically through like episode 20, and we're on episode 12 right now of Smoky Mountain. So I didn't want to hold Bobby Blaze's interview until, 6 weeks down the line. That's why I'm doing it on this show. So in case anyone wants to know why we're not putting the former Smoky Mountain Wrestling heavyweight champion on that show. So just so y'all know. All right, Survivor Series, real quick. Here's my thoughts. I'm okay with Brock and Goldberg, that match, the way it went down, because I just think that if it would have went longer, people would have shit on it. They would have shit all over it because Goldberg hadn't been in a ring in so long. So it was a quick match, whatever. And the fact that, but the more importantly, I think what's being glossed over here, because Doc used to make fun of this when we did used to review WWE a lot. Bruh, fucking Bray Wyatt got a win at a pay-per-view. That's the big news for me. That's my thoughts on Survivor Series. Harper, did you watch it, or you were like, man, fuck this shit?
I didn't watch one goddamn second of it.
Okay. Doc, I know you didn't watch it. What did you think about the way they did the match where it lasted literally, I think, 88 seconds?
So is that the payoff for Lesnar beating Undertaker?
I don't.
Was to get a 49-year-old man over? And so what I'm thinking here is, and I don't like Goldberg, but whatever. If Goldberg comes in and gets back and gets his win, we couldn't give Sting a win?
Yeah, for real, huh? Well, they shit all over Sting.
Well, look who Sting wrestled. Triple fucking H. And
he lost twice.
Yeah, but, the second time, even though he was probably going to lose to Seth, the second time he got injured. So I kind of give them a pass, even though it was probably booked that he wasn't going to win anyway. I mean, he got. So I
guarantee you, Sting, he's so old. Goldberg's old too, and you're gonna tell me Sting?
Don't get you started.
And you're gonna tell me Sting
losing to fucking Triple H? It was a fucking shit show. Fuck Triple H.
Come on.
He can go fucking kick rocks. Fuck him. Fucking prick.
So anyway,
fucking territory, Paul.
So anyway, we're going to build up a 49-year-old man that was created somewhere else when we got 60 guys on the roster that we can't get over. Sounds like there's your problem.
Whatever, yeah, it is what it is. Whatever. I mean, look, it was a quick match. It was a shocker. I give them credit. They did something that I'm betting nobody expected. So
no,
whatever. Okay.
Here's the other thing. Here's the other thing about Survivor Series. If I'm going to shell out money or go to a big show, there better be in the main event, and main event means last match on the card, there better be the world title up for stake. Otherwise, why are we doing all this shit?
Well, I mean, that's how it was in the territory days.
You don't play a wild card game after the Super Bowl. Everything builds to the world championship every time. And now, which one? So you've already diluted it.
But the booking logic's already fucked up because they've made it to the point that their champions don't mean anything. So if they even did book their champions in the main event, it's like, who fucking cares?
Yeah.
You can't. I mean, you're trying to make logic out of horse shit, and horse shit don't have logic.
They ought to have Owens versus Styles in an Iron Man match because they're both champions, and neither one of them could win because they're champions. So they would just wrestle until they fall down and fall asleep, pass out.
Man, I'm moving on. Raw did do a 2.14 rating. They did a little over 3 million viewers. I will say
3 million suckers.
Yeah, I will say this. Jericho and Owens, if you haven't seen it, go back and watch it on Hulu or your DVR. They're fucking hilarious together. It's great. They are fantastic. Please don't break them up. Let them keep doing their thing. I know most people don't like the world champion in comedy or universal fucking champion in comedy, but their skits and segments are some of the best things going on Raw. Enzo and Kaz called Rusev's man parts soft. I thought that was very entertaining. But then they fucked it up when they did Charlotte tapping out to the bank statement to my girl Sasha Banks in a tag match. So once again, although in a tag match, you basically bury your world champion. Good job, WWE. We appreciate it. SmackDown Live. I don't know the ratings on that yet. I didn't look them up before the show, but I will say this. Someone named Reggie emailed us, and Reggie said, did you see SmackDown? If you didn't, Nikki and Carmella will be fighting at TLC next SmackDown pay-per-view in a no DQ match. Do you think days of DQ matches are done? Let me answer that, and I'll let Harper talk about it too, because I know he's been involved in a few lately, but just with Wildcat in general over the years. I think DQ matches are, like, to me, they've gone their way. And I'll say this, and I'm not advocating somebody take a steel chair and clock a dude over the head with it, but it's like you can only do so much these days in a DQ match. I mean, we've already seen guys go through tables. We've already seen guys get blasted over, with chairs over the back. I don't know. To me, again, I'm not saying you should crush somebody over the head with a chair, but that used to be real impactful whenever you had no DQ matches and somebody would take a chair and fucking slather it all over somebody's head. I don't know. No DQ matches just don't do anything for me anymore. They used to, but they've lost their appeal for whatever reason. They
don't follow the rules anyway.
Right. So
what the hell's the point?
Yeah. And then typically too, Harper, they book these no DQ matches to the pay-per-view because they know they have a pay-per-view coming up, like Hell in a Cell. So they book them that way, like, because they have that pay-per-view coming up. They don't book it because that's where they are in the storyline. It's forced. So that's another reason why I'm just done on DQ matches. I don't know. But anyway, Doc, do you have anything about that, or you just like, fuck WWE, I'm not commenting on them anymore?
That thing that you just said.
Okay. Last thing, Bryson sent me an email. He said, did you see what Wade Keller said about SmackDown? And then he copied it in the email. He said, Wade Keller said, the surge in Raw ratings didn't directly lead to an above-average rating for SmackDown because, and think about what he's saying. He's saying Raw did have a surge. They went over 3 million viewers, which to say that's a surge is just, that tells you where wrestling is. But Wade Keller did say that the Raw rating didn't lead directly to an above-average rating for SmackDown, so Goldberg's appearance helped Raw pop a rating. 3 million viewers popping a rating, guys. But its effect on SmackDown was negligible. Other than the fact that SmackDown was above average and near the higher levels it's hit in recent months without last week's show with The Undertaker, because The Undertaker did pop the rating. What the ratings for the last two shows is WWE is able to communicate to lapsed or infrequent viewers when a big star is appearing, and those fans tune in, but they don't stick around once a special attraction isn't around. And that's the fucking truth. You bring back these people who from 20 years ago, you'll slightly pop a rating, but nobody's sticking around. I mean, Doc ain't even watch it, and they popped, then they came in. He's like, fuck this, I'm not watching it. And Harper went to sleep on it.
And it sounded like an acceptance speech at an award show. He thanked his kid and thanked his wife and all that shit. I was like, what the fuck, bro?
Can we get back to some wrestling?
Well, and bringing back the stars is the new way to get cheap heat.
Right.
Where it used to be come out and go, oh, I hate Philadelphia, blah, 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 if you're in Philadelphia, or I love Philadelphia. This is just their version of cheap heat because they don't know how to build any real heat. Uh-huh. They're too afraid to offend anybody. We're going to get to offending somebody a little bit later in the episode, so you stick tight.
You talking about the Ron Wright thing?
Yeah, buddy.
Well, that's actually what's next.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to – we're going to play this. This is the promo of the week at the end of this week's episode, and I apologize for the audio of it. It's about 4.5 minutes, but – Doc and I have been raving about this guy, Ron Wright, he's a fucking legend. Ron Wright's a legend. If you don't know who Ron Wright is, please go follow our Smoky Mountain.
We didn't know a year ago.
Look, I'll admit it. Ron Wright was off of my radar. I remember Cornette talking about him on his Jim Cornette Experience at one point, and I was like, oh, okay, whatever. I've never seen this guy because I had no point of reference. And then this motherfucker is on Smoky Mountain, and I'm watching this shit that's 23 and 24 years old, and I'm like, holy fucking shit, this man's a legend. He's a fucking nuclear heat magnet. So Ron Wright cuts his promo, and I'm going to let Doc cover it. But there's fucking Nazi flags and fucking all kind of shit going on.
Hold on. Don't give it away just yet.
Well, let me set the stage. Okay, so we're going to play it at the end of the episode, and keep in mind, like I said, the audio is not great, so I apologize, but it's old audio. However, Doc, go ahead and recap real quick what this promo is.
So this is a promotion called USA Championship Wrestling. I tried to do a little digging on it unsuccessfully, but I didn't try that hard. I think it was run in Chattanooga, East Tennessee, Knoxville, in the late 80s. So we are predating the Smoky Mountain run of Ron Wright by about 4 years, the best I can tell. So,
and hey, let me stop you for a second about that USA Wrestling. So I've also did some more reading on it, and I've been told by people who know on Twitter that some of the stuff that they did in that promotion around that time frame was actually some of the best wrestling that there was anywhere in the country during that year, like 88.
So let me set the stage. It appears that the little I did research that I found was it is a promotion run by the Fullers, Ron Fuller, who ran Continental and Southeastern and Alabama and that area a lot, but he came up and worked had that area. And that's important because Ron Fuller is mentioned throughout this interview. So anyway, it's about 4 minutes long. We start with Ron Wright being called to the commentator desk by Gordon Solie. So we have the dean of wrestling announcers, many would consider the best of all time. So Gordon is involved with this product. That adds an air of legitimacy to this thing. And out comes Ron Wright. So he's not in the wheelchair. He's on both feet, but he's got a cane. And he's wearing a white suit with black trim and a black top hat. He's accompanied by a black man in a suit with sunglasses on, I think.
Yeah, he had sunglasses on.
The Mongolian Stomper, one of the Moondogs, and a guy in a Nazi costume. And we'll get more on that in just a second. So he's made a pretty grand entrance, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, as Ron Wright usually does, yes.
Okay, so we get to the desk, and this is kind of a side note, but one I thought was very hilarious. There's a 6-pack of Mellow Yellow on the desk.
Remember that shit?
Yeah.
Do you remember Mellow Yellow?
It was like they sponsored NASCAR, and it was kind of like a fucking Mountain Dew knockoff to me.
Days of Thunder.
Yeah, Days of Thunder was on that too around that time frame.
So think Mountain Dew, but I think it was made by Coke instead of Pepsi. And I was just wondering that later on, when we reintroduced Mellow Yellow, Coca-Cola or whatever company made Mellow Yellow must have loved the product placement of what's about to happen. So Ron Wright sits down and he's got his cane and he's already jaw-jacking and just in a foul mood, and he says, oh man, I wish I could do the Ron Wright like you do, but anyway, picture Mike saying this in Ron Wright's voice. You got all these other flags of these other countries up here, which, by the way, there's a Tennessee flag and a U.S. flag, other countries. Hang up my flag. So his guys unfurl and drape over the commentary desk a huge
Nazi flag.
At this point, my notes were, holy shit.
Yes.
Gordon Solie did not act as offended as I thought he should be, so I'm just now going to assume that Gordon Solie is a closet Nazi.
No, don't say that. You don't know that. Come on now.
Now, if you haven't fired this up yet, he's dead. He can't do anything to us.
No, but come on, man. No, it's Gordon Solie, dude.
Gordon,
prick.
So, if you're going to listen to this at the end of the show, and you're going to watch it later, think about the biggest flag you could think of. It's not the kind that fly outside at the car dealership, but just think about a fucking big flag. This flag is bigger than that. So that makes me wonder this, Mike. Where do you think he got that flag?
Bro, I don't know. Because, I mean, you got to figure, how the fuck did you get that fucking flag in America? Well, I mean, I guess, I don't know. I mean, somebody could make it, maybe. I don't know, dude.
And it ain't like eBay or Craigslist were around back
Yeah.
then. You had to work a little bit to get
Army
to
surplus, maybe. I don't know.
I don't know either, dude.
But this thing is draped over the desk. I mean, it's a blanket. We could have all three got underneath it and had some cover. I mean, it's just huge. At which point, to hold it in place, Ron Wright uses the 6-pack of Mellow Yellow as kind of a paperweight or a flag weight. So at this point, I'm sure that if I was an executive in the Mellow Yellow Corporation, I'd be like, holy shit, there's my product and a Nazi flag on wrestling.
You know what I'm gonna do in the show notes of the show? I'm gonna put the YouTube link in the show notes. That way, people
That sounds
can go
like a
watch it.
fantastic idea.
And the audio will be at the end.
That's why you're the boss. All right, so we finally get down to some real wrestling business, and it comes out that based on some previous shenanigans, Ron Fuller is going to fine Ron Wright $5,000. And Ron Wright loses his mind. And some of this, I couldn't even hit. The audio's bad. He's just ranting and raving. And but then he starts talking about Ron Fuller is bringing in people to try to take out the Stomper. He mentions Crusher Blackwell and Austin Idol. So we're about 2 minutes and 20 seconds in, and the Mongolian Stomper just starts yelling. And he starts yelling bending down and yelling in the mic so damn much, I can't even hear Ron Wright anymore.
It turns into a bit of a cluster. But
it is perhaps for a couple of minutes stretch some of the most insane shit going on I've ever seen in wrestling. And I don't want to oversell it and say most, but it's in the discussion, because while Ron Wright is going on, picture this, Ron Wright's sitting there going on and on into Sully's mic about the fines. Stomper bends down and is screaming in the mic, and in the background, the stormtrooper. Don't forget, we have a guy in a mask with a big Nazi symbol on his back, is standing in the back, sig heiling. I'm gonna let all that sink in.
It's pretty fucking bad.
At 3 minutes in, because for 40 seconds straight, Ron Wright's just saying he ain't gonna pay any fines and fuck a fine and whatever. At 3 minutes in, at the 3 minute mark, Moondog is now gnawing on a bone. Stomper is still yelling. The Stormtrooper is back there Naziing it up. And all while this is going on, our African-American gentleman is just standing there still as a statue. And I'm thinking, he's thinking, man, white people are crazy.
Yeah, he doesn't fucking do nothing.
Mm-mm. So we get Ron Wright ranting and raving about fines. The thing I thought here was that this is certainly a more amped up and aggressive Ron Wright than we get in Smoky Mountain, but the tenor and the thing, kind of the tone is the same in both. He's being wronged by the man. He's being wronged by the promotion. He's just a little bit more fired up about it here. In Smoky Mountain, he's the old, crippled uncle that you're still being mean to.
He plays that role so well. I think that's the thing that people need to realize about Ron Wright. He plays that role of, you son of a bitch, you fucking think you pulled a fast one on me? You bastard, you're just fucking with me. You tried to pull a fast one on me. I'm just an old, crippled old man. This is him in Smoky Mountain. I'm just an old, crippled old man. You pull a fast one on me. Smoky Mountain Wrestling. You think you got it down, but that's all right. We're gonna come for you. I'm gonna sick the dirty white ball on you. I mean, he just plays that role of, you low down son of a bitch. I'm gonna get you. It's just perfect. Like, you don't see that in wrestling no more. What he does, they don't let nobody do that.
No,
I mean, it's just incredible. But I didn't mean to side.
Well, he's able to get heat, and so they don't let anybody get heat. So much less get heat in the right ways and do it awesome. So
they got people with heat like fucking Paul Levesque. Go away, heat. Get the fuck off my TV. They got that kind of heat.
Well, we're talking about Ron Wright, not Paul Levesque. So anyway, right. He wraps up he's wrapped up his sermon about fines and 5,000 and 10,000, and you can find me, Ron Fuller. I ain't blah blah blah. We ain't gonna stop. And so finally he wraps it up. And the thing of it is this is so entertaining. And if you go back and you look at the content, he doesn't say shit about shit. I didn't take away one bit of content that he said other than fuck a fine. But I was so entertained and just kind of weirdly disgusted and just, what did I just see? And just interested and entertained for 4 minutes. And I don't even know what he said. Finally, him and his crew get up. They leave the flag draped over the desks. So
Gordon Solie is appalled.
It's always like, I don't want this here. I don't want this here. And he kind of wads it up and throws it to the side, and they all go out. So a couple of other things. If you look up Mike's going to put the YouTube link in there. There's a couple of extra things. Somebody in the comments says that there's a kid that they cut to the crowd and there's a kid that gives the Sig Heil signal back. I must have missed that. I was busy taking a lot of notes on this thing. The other thing to mention, and this is real interesting, in one of the links, and hopefully it's the one Mike sent out, if you read down in the comments, there is a guy named David Wright who comments saying he is Ron Wright's son and talks about the fact that Ron was just doing an angle and that in real life one of his best friends and a family friend that was considered to be an uncle was actually an African-American man. So I hate to break kayfabe and tell you that. And obviously we don't know if it's true, but I was reading through the comments because there was some, again, if this is about drawing a reaction, there was some reaction in the comments about the fact that there was some pretty bold and in-your-face Nazi imagery here.
Well, can you imagine if WWE rolled out a fucking Nazi flag on Monday Night Raw nowadays? I mean,
they'll get kicked off of TV.
Yeah, it wouldn't even. Dude, USA would cut that feed instantly. It would be no discussion. Like, what the fuck are they doing?
I got to tell you, it was. This is almost 30 years old. It was jarring when that flag gets unfurled and it's as big as it is, and you see that thing, and they're not just. They're kind of okay. This is it. It makes you a little uncomfortable. I'm not gonna lie.
That's because you and I and Harper know the history of fucking Germany and how fucking terrible the Holocaust was. I mean, come on. It's just it can be jarring. But anyway, that was that's going to be our promo of the week, and it will be linked in the episode. You got 4 minutes. Notes.
It's only 4 minutes and 15 seconds, I think. And let me tell you something. It will be better. It will be a better spent. The video is terrible. There's the squiggly lines across the bottom. The audio is muddy, and it is better than the 12 hours of this week that WWE is going to ask you to watch. You got 4 minutes. You can have a whole good time with wrestling.
10 times better at that, dude. 10 times better. All right, y'all. So that was our promo of the week, and we talked about that for about 10 fucking minutes. But it's really good, so check it out. It's really, really entertaining. I did get one more message before we get to our top five. The message was from one of our listeners, Aaron, via email. Aaron said, Jim Cornette's comments on MLW Radio this week on their flagship show, and he said, Mike, did you hear what Cornette said? Evidently he was a guest on MLW's flagship show, Court's guest. So it was Court, Cornette, and MSL, and he said that people will buy two national promotions, but the people will not buy two promotions owned by the same promotion. And they were talking about the brand split with Raw and SmackDown. He then went on, and then the MSL piped in and said, fundamentally, the brand split will never work. We are and this is a note from me. We're 4 months into it at this point. It's gotten worse, in my opinion. It's just, I don't know how. Look, I was actually looking forward to it because you had like two fresh products and you wouldn't have the guys overexposed. I think that's a good thing. The problem is you're asking your fans to watch 5 hours of television between Monday and Tuesday night. That's the bigger issue.
I told you way back when this thing started, I don't know how they're going to do it exactly, but they're going to fuck this thing up. And look what happened.
It is what it is at this point. So anyway,
hey, but you know what else was? Because I listened to that podcast because I'm a fan of Jim Cornette more than you are.
No, you're not.
So interestingly enough, they asked him, "Would you show up for a Hall of Fame if the Midnight Express?"
Oh, I heard that. I did hear that.
And he said if the Midnight Express and the Rock and Roll Express were both inducted at the same time, he'd go, but that's never going to happen. And then they asked if he could do, because he does a lot of the wrestling kayfabe commentaries and a lot of stuff he sells through his website, if they created a role at WWE for him to do a lot of that kind of work, would he be interested? And he hemmed and hawed. And you know that him and haw, he didn't just, first response wasn't no. So if they offered him enough money and a cushy enough schedule and kept him away from people he didn't like, he'd do it. But his thing was they'll never do it. So we'll get Jim back in the wrestling business at some point. He can't stay away.
the fact that those teams aren't in a Hall of Fame is fucking crime against fucking nature.
Well,
I want you to think about that. Think about that. The Rock and Roll Express and the Midnight Express, two of the teams that set the wrestling tag team world on fire in the 80s.
But did you hear that?
For over a decade, actually, are not.
Well, they didn't work for them, so they don't give a shit.
I know, but there's also a lot of other people that didn't work for him, too, that are in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, but did you hear what he said?
Oh, about when McMahon, when they were coming to the ring, said, which one's Ricky and which one's Robert?
Yeah.
Jesus fucking Christ. I hear that, and I'm like, you fucking piece of shit. That just, oh, God, that just drives me up a wall. Come on, man.
And that was 1993, because they came in from Smoky Mountain, because they fight the Heavenly Bodies at a Survivor Series, I think.
Which one is Ricky and which one's Robert? Fuck me.
Well, Robert's the one that's going to fuck Linda first, and then Ricky's going to finish up.
That's nice. Follow my eye.
And as that Mullet of Morton and at the Eye of Gibson say on Twitter all the time, they'll cross swords while doing it.
The Rock and Roll Express just means they pulled a train on your ass. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, my God. Yes, sir. That's just crazy. But anyway, all right, y'all. So, hey.
If it's got a hole, it will be serviced by the Rock and Roll.
That's nice.
As I first read from, I think it was the Eye of Gibson's Twitter said that. At the Eye of Gibson was the one who said it. Okay, let's move on. We got our top 5. It took us a while to get here, but we are here. And this week's top 5, like we said, is the top 5 title belts of all time based on looks, prestige, and importance. So here's the thing. Let me say a couple of things real quick before we get started. I thought this one was very, very hard. And the other part of it, too, is understand we frequently do say that, you know, when we do these top 5s, it's very subjective. It's subjective to what you saw and what you grew up watching. But this, more than anything, was truly like that to me because it's just, you know, we grew up watching Mid-South and World Class in the NWA, so it's a little, it can be easy to fall into the trap of picking just those belts because that was what you were exposed to, and I found myself doing that a lot with this. So I tried to be, you know, a little bit more objective, but at the same time, this was very, very hard to do. So, Doc, you want to add anything before we get started?
Man, I'm ready to get this top 5 out of the way because this one racked my brain, but I think I got the best list without hearing y'all two. So let's get started.
All right, so we'll start with Doc. We'll start with you, Harper. You go, then I'll go. So we're number 5. Doc, hit your number 5.
My number 5 is the NWA TV title. I picked this more for look than anything else. It has a red inlay. There's a lot of red in it. It's a nice looking belt. It's back when titles still mattered, so there's probably a lot of good title holders for that, but I don't really know. I'm assuming somebody else has this on the list too, and so I kind of mixed title importance on some of these. I took some liberties. This one more was, I think it's a good-looking belt. I'm not a huge fan of the look of a belt, but there's a couple on my list that stand out, and then I also tried to mix in the importance of the belt some other places. So my number 5, long story short, the NWA TV title.
That was a very nice-looking belt, I will say that. Very, very good look to it. And, I want to say this, too, while we're doing this topic. So I kind of partnered with at Old Wrestling Pick on Twitter. They ran a poll last week. Nate and I covered it. By the way, the belt that won that poll was actually the old NWA World title with the globe at the center. The NWA TV title came in second on that poll. The green WWF World title, which was the one Hogan first won, came in third, and then the AWA title came in fourth. So I just wanted to mention that because those guys, they do some good work on their Twitter feed. So go follow them. It's at Old Wrestling Pick on Twitter. They do all kind of cool polls, and most of them are old school stuff. Like one of the ones that they did, Doc, and we'll get to this, and maybe next week or the week after, I haven't decided yet, was they do a poll about who was the best feud that Flair had. So like they list Funk and Steamboat and Rhodes. And I thought that was a really cool one to go through. So, and that one would really be based on ranking because I think we would all have the same 5, but it would be where we put the 5. Yeah. That would be most interesting. So, that was an example. So, I kind of partnered with them, and they're doing these polls, and I'm grabbing some of their ideas as well from the list. So, but anyway, that was your 5.
Hey, you know what you know who you need to partner with?
Oh, jeez.
You need to partner with me and Harper. It's Christmas time, and we need some of that T-shirt money.
Okay. Harper, what's your number 5?
The
Title
NWA world title belt. I've always loved the freaking globe. Yeah, man.
It's a beautiful belt. There's no other way to say it. Beautiful belt. It's still in existence today. I mean, but it was you think back to when Flair had that belt in the early 80s, and god damn, that belt, loved it. Harley Race held it. So many people held that belt. My number 5, gonna be a shocker to some people. I'm going with the WWF title. I don't have the years of this one, but it is the green belt. This is the one that Hogan won from Iron Sheik the first time he won the WWF world title. I can't tell you why, but there's something about that belt that I really liked. From a prestige standpoint, it was the one that got that Hulkamania bullshit started. But, guys like Bob Backlund held it, the Iron Sheik held it, so I really like that belt. I'm not a Northeastern wrestling fan guy. None of us are. And I'll catch shit from this from Mike Crockett and Brian Malonis from the Wrestling Podcast About Nothing for not ranking this higher, but what the fuck ever. I still love you guys, Crockett and Malonis. But the WWF title, the green belt that Hogan first won, was my number 5.
That's a good-looking belt. That's a good-looking belt.
Really? You think it was good-looking?
It was different. But
That's what I liked about it. It was different.
Yeah.
Maybe it's got that nostalgia appeal to me because I was a kid. Like, I think if they rolled that out nowadays, I'd be like, what is this bullshit? It looks like puke. But as a kid, I just remember that belt, and I don't know. It just had a cool.
And that one they replaced it with was definitely not. No.
Yeah, I remember that one. I hated that belt. It was, what that belt they replaced it with? It was cookie cutter to me.
Yeah, it was your standard wrestling belt.
Right. There was nothing that stood out about it. Nothing at all. So that was my number 5, the green WWF title. All right, my number 4 is the WWF World Tag Team titles, which ran from the late 80s through most of the 90s. And I took some notes on the number of people or the great teams that held this belt. So the Road Warriors held that belt. Hart Foundation, the Rockers, although, you guys know how I feel about Shawn Michaels. The Nasty Boys, the Steiners, the British Bulldogs, they all held that belt. I just like the look of it. If you just search, late 80s, early 90s world tag titles, WWF, you'll know which ones I'm talking about. But I like the look of those, and there were some really good teams that held that. So that was my number 4. Harper, you're number 4.
I call it the Ric Flair belt, the one they had in WCW, and they transferred over into WWE.
The big goal.
The real big one.
Yeah, that's the big goal. I know exactly what. Yeah.
Because that was a belt when they came out wearing that, you knew he was a world fucking champion.
Do you remember when they went from the NWA World Title with the Globe to that belt? Do you remember that?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Okay. Did you like it when you first saw it, or you were like, eh?
Yeah, because it was so huge.
It was huge.
And when you wore that, you knew damn well he was the world champion. He wasn't a tag team champion. He was their top guy.
That was like the first belt that I remember. Well, it's not the first belt that I remember that had 3 plates, but what I remember so much about that belt and sticks in my mind is you had the big center plate, and it only had the 2 plates on the side. Now there were other belts that only had 2 plates on the side, but they didn't have that huge, center medallion as they call it. So that was a good belt. That was a good belt. Doc, what about you? You're number 4.
My number 4 is Harper's number 4, the WCW Big Gold Belt.
Wow.
Again, same reason where he was the real world's champion.
Yeah.
The reason it's 4 and not higher is that later on they gave that shit to David Arquette and Vince Russo.
Yeah, they tarnished that bitch by the end of it.
Yeah, really.
They tarnished the fuck out of that.
So if we're going to be fair about burying WWE's product for beating champions, we got to hold some classic wrestling accountable to putting the belt on David fucking Arquette.
Well, look, here's the thing. I've heard, I've talked to Brian Fury a few times on the show, and Brian Fury always tells me, to talk about what you're talking about with classic wrestling and how they how they did things different. He firmly always tells me that the Attitude Era is actually overrated as a whole. Now, he's not saying Stone Cold's overrated, but what his point is, that Stone Cold angle was hotter than fucking, 6 Sons. But if you look at everything else during that time, what sticks in your mind? And I say that because, we always remember the good stuff, but 20 years down the line, you're like, you don't remember all the bad stuff. And you just made that point, Doc. It's like we're praising that belt, but, man, let's remember what they did as they got closer to the end with that belt. David Arquette held that fucking belt.
Vince Russo held it.
Russo, come on, man. So, yeah, it's just crazy.
Mike.
And I don't hate Russo. I mean, whatever. I think he actually gets too much blame, but I'm not saying he's not accountable. He should be held accountable to a point, but he does get too much blame for the bullshit that went on there. Anyway, okay. Where are we at? We're at number 3. So, Doc, you're number 3. What you got, man?
All right. Well, this is where Doc is the man. I went with the title for importance sake more than looks here. When I was a kid, this belt I didn't know much about it, but it was always positioned as the stepping stone title to the NWA World Heavyweight title, and that is the Missouri Heavyweight Championship.
Really?
Yes. Now, I
wouldn't have went with that, but okay.
I think this belt had some importance as a regional title. I'm going to read off who held this title from 1973 to 1986, and you tell me there's one clunker in here, and you tell me who else is a clunker besides the one guy who's a clunker.
Okay.
Johnny Valentine, Terry Funk, Gene Kaninsky, Harley Race, Dory Funk, Harley Race, Bob Backlund, Jack Briscoe, Dick Slater, Ted DiBiase, Dick Murdoch, Dick the Bruiser, Dick Murdoch, Dick the Bruiser, Dick Murdoch, Kevin Von Erich, Ken Patera, Ted DiBiase, Jack Briscoe, Ken Patera, Dick the Bruiser, Harley Race, Kerry Von Erich, Jerry Blackwell, Harley Race, Ric Flair, David Von Erich, Harley Race, Jerry Blackwell, Harley Race.
That's some name. You know what? Now that you say that, I don't blame you because I have a title that may shock some people, and I have a similar list of names that I will mention.
It was positioned in the hundreds of Aftermath PWIs that I had as a kid. As that was always the belt that was. And if you listen to those people, how many NWA champs are in there? Now this was in Harley Race's territory, so that's why you hear his name so many times. He won it 7 times there. But again, it's fucking Harley Race, so you're going to tell Harley he can't have the belt. He might stretch you. But just a who's who of names for that time, a who's who of superstars, a who's who of former and future and past NWA champions. So I'm going to go with the Missouri Heavyweight Championship at number 3.
It's a shocker, but when you read those names off, I got to say that's pretty impressive. Now, did you like the look of the belt too?
It was average. It was all right.
Okay, but yeah, you went with the prestige of it from the names that held it. I got you. Okay. Harper, what you got at number 3?
The Mid-South North American title.
I had a feeling you were going to go there at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a fucking...
That shit was badass.
Yeah, it was very, very different.
It caught your eye.
Yeah, if you've never seen that title because you just weren't exposed to that area and that Mid-South ran, and, they did away with that belt once Bill Watts went national and he went with the UWF world title, which was a very good looking title in itself. But the Mid-South North American title not only had a really good look, but there are some hellified names that held it. So spoiler alert, yeah, it's on my list, so just wait.
DiBiase, JYD,
yep,
Hacksaw.
It's a hell of a list of people who had that.
Man, we can't do a fucking list without you two bringing up the Mid-South bullshit. Y'all are some homers.
Oh, okay, fucking world class asshole. Okay, my number 3, actually, it's been said, is the NWA World Heavyweight title, the Globe. I don't know what else you want me to say. Ric Flair held it, Dusty Rhodes held it, Harley Race held it, Steamboat held it. I mean, actually, did Steamboat hold the one with the... That's right.
No.
I'm saying Steamboat. That's right. No,
How
about Funk?
Yeah.
Funks,
Funks,
Briscoes, Kaninsky, Buddy Rogers.
There you go. It had a fucking great look to it. It's still in existence. I mean, today, it's still out there. The NWA is still in existence, although the prestige of the NWA is not what it was at that time, and that's not me knocking it. It just is what it is. But that was the title for a very long time, so that was my number 3.
It's my bucket list item. Remember that?
Yeah, your bucket
Don't. Whatever.
bucket list.
Mark.
My number 2 is the Mid-South North American title. And Harper alluded at this a second ago, but look, these are some of the names that held that title. Again, Junkyard Dog, Ted DiBiase, Jake the Snake Roberts, Magnum TA, Butch Reed, Dick Murdoch, I can't remember if Dick Slater held it, the Big Cat Ernie Ladd, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, Paul Orndorff, Nikolai Volkov, Mr. Wrestling #2. There's just a fucking load of people who held that title. And it, like Harper said, it's got a really, really, really different look to it. It's got a huge, like, middle plate. And then the side plates are fucking huge, too. So it's just big, thick, wide.
It covers almost
belt.
the whole torso.
Yes, it covers almost the whole torso. It's hard to explain, but search Mid-South North American title and you'll see exactly what we mean. It is a huge belt. And not only did it have a different look to it, but, again, the names that held it, DiBiase, Junkyard Dog, Jake the Snake, Magnum TA, Butch Reed, Dick Murdoch, Big Cat Ernie Ladd, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, Paul Orndorff. It's just a list of people who are legends in the wrestling business. So that's why that was my number 2. Harper, your number 2.
I've always thought the best. When I think of a star in a wrestling business, the number 2 is that kind of that. It's the WWE title from the late '80s.
The gold wing belt. I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
I mean, that's the belt that the stars had on. Hogan, Macho, Brett. I think Steve Austin had it too, huh?
I'm trying to remember when he won it, if it was that one. I know Brett did. I know Shawn did. I know, like you said, Savage did. Hogan won it. Hell, I think Andre even had that version of the belt at one point, I think. No, Andre didn't have that one, now that I think about it. But you're right. That was the legendary belt in so many, of WWF at that time. Agree.
Yeah. So
Doc, you're number 2.
My number 2 is the WWF Winged Eagle World Title.
The Winged Eagle, that's what it's called. That's it, same one. That's fucking crazy.
So me and Harper think just alike.
That's fucking scary.
I'm going to go out and Harper us some bitches tonight.
Yeah. Don't even wrap it up, bro. Grab right by the horns.
Shooting ropes.
Well, Mullet Morton says pulling out sucks, too, just while you're at it. So I'm just going to throw it out there.
And that's a period of WWF where I'm not a fan, but I think that's a really sharp-looking title, and then it goes on to some of the guys who held it. So I thought that was a really good-looking belt, and I'm not a big fan of the look of a belt versus other things. So that one stood out to me.
Triple H didn't have nothing to do with that belt, so I'll give it some fucking pop, some credit.
Okay.
All right. So where are we at? That's we're at number 1 now, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, Doc, what's your number 1?
I can't believe we're even discussing this or even had any question that you guys got this so wrong. The number 1 belt of all time is the NWA Heavyweight Championship. The look, the feel, the prestige. It was, as Ric Flair used to say, if you're not holding the belt, then you're just kidding yourself. You're second best. It was the richest prize in professional wrestling. It was held by the biggest stars. It was the attraction around the country. It was started by Lou Thez. AJ Styles has held it 3 times. Bet you didn't know that.
I did know that. You're talking about, because that was when TNA was actually aligned with the NWA, and the TNA World Title was the NWA World Title at that point.
And you had to be, back in the day, a performer, a hellified worker, a tough guy in case things got sideways to protect the title, dependable, which is probably why a lot of guys didn't get it. You had to be durable. I mean, just the whole thing was back in the day, and we talk about it in indictment to other promotions today, is the champ's in the building. The champ's going on last. He's in the main event. He's coming out last in the main event. He's the reason we're all here. Everything else was to warm us up for the big event, which is the world title. And that was the biggest promotion in the world. And it was the biggest prize in that promotion. And, oh, by the way, it was a good-looking belt, too.
Just that time period, what was so magical about wrestling was the NWA champ would come to town, and it was like, fuck. We'd be lathered up and ready to fucking see
It was
the
like
world
Santa
champ.
Claus coming to town.
Bruh, And the thing was, like, you knew your fucking local guy wasn't going to beat him, but fucking Flair and those NWA World Champs, Harley Race, they would make your local guy look like $1 million as they lost.
They would, and they'd be behind the banner from like Mid-Atlantic or wherever, cutting a promo that they were coming, and that those stinky Von Erich boys weren't going to get a hold of their title or shit like that. That was the cool part, is that they got to send a tape in, and we got to see that shit too.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I can't knock that. All right, Harper, you're number one.
The Intercontinental title. The one,
the WWF one?
Yeah, the one from the 80s, and they brought it back. I've always liked that belt.
Here's the thing about that belt. When you talk about prestige, the look of it is okay to me, but the prestige of that title with people like Steamboat holding it and Savage holding it, that belt, you know what sucks about that belt though now is it's lost its prestige because of how WWF or WWE treats titles. But if you do really look at the lineage of it, there's some fucking heavy hitters that held that title.
Yeah.
Well, it used to be the worker's belt.
Yeah.
You think about it, like Bret held it, Shawn held it.
Honky Tonk Man.
Honky Tonk. It's funny, Honky Tonk.
Perfect.
Yeah. You're making fun of Honky Tonk, but I mean, him with that belt, getting the heat that he got with it, did a lot for that belt. I mean,
yeah, it did.
He made, and then again, Steamboat held it. It just.
Who did he beat for it?
Was
it Steamboat? No, Honky Tonk Man.
I don't remember. We'll get one of our wrestling historians to tweet the show and tell us. I don't remember, but yeah, that was that belt in the 80s with Savage. When I think of that belt, I immediately think of Savage and what he did for it. Savage was great with that belt. Savage was fantastic with that belt. But dude, there were some heavy hitters that held that belt. Yeah, no joke about that. And like Doc said, that was like the workers' belt. That was the belt that, if you remember when Hulkamania was running wild on you, brother, that you might have had Hulk and Andre at the main or Hulk on the main, but
hey, you don't need to wait for these marks out there in Markland to tell you who Honky Tonk Man beat for the Intercontinental title. On June 13th, 1987, on Superstars, Honky Tonk Man defeated Ricky the Dragon Steamboat.
Okay,
damn, that was on Superstars?
That's a real prestigious belt you got there, Harper.
Well, I mean, back then you could tape title belts changing hands and play it 2 and 3 weeks later and 4 weeks later. It didn't fucking matter.
Yeah, no one knew.
Yeah, no one knew. I mean, word of mouth didn't get around that much. You didn't have you didn't have 5,000 people in an arena with a cell phone camera to take pictures of it and spread it across the internet. So, yeah, no. It's not on my list, but it's a good belt. All right, my number one. None of y'all had this one. Doc, I'm actually shocked you don't have this one. I'm not going to say I'm shocked that you don't have it number one, but I'm shocked it wasn't on your list. My number one is the NWA World Tag Team titles. From the version that I'm referring to is from 82 to 95, if you want to look it up. And the reason I put it there is the Rock and Roll Express and the Midnight Express, two of the greatest tag teams of all time, held it. Ivan and Nikita Koloff held it. Arn and Tully held it. Road Warriors held it. Steiner's actually held it at some point. Doom, Butch Reed and Ron Simmons held it. Freebirds, not the Texas Freebirds version. And then the Varsity Club, Mike Rotunda and Dr. Des Steve Williams held this version of the NWA World Tag Team title. So I went with that. And the reason, is, actually I didn't expect to do this, but we can tie it back to what Cornette said about Rock and Roll at Midnight needing to be in the WWE Hall of Fame. Those belts, when Ricky and Robert and the Midnight Express came to town, you may have had the world title with Flair, and it may have set the territory on fire every time he walked in. But you look at that NWA scene, tag team wrestling during that time period was on fire. And you had the Rock and Roll at Midnight leading the way. And it was great wrestling, great time. We've talked about it before. When Ricky and Robert hit the scene, whether they were champs or not, the fucking crowd would pop like no tomorrow. And that's why I put the NWA World Tag Team titles in that.
Doesn't this suck that fucking wrestling sucks now?
It does.
It's a crime.
Dude, Doc said this one time, and I had not planned on talking about this, but Doc told me one time, he goes, it was like one of these sentimental things. He's sitting in my office, he goes, bruh, you ever think about it? Wrestling used to own 7 nights a week, man. 7 days a week, the NWA, the territories were on the road. They were in a different town. People would go to wrestling on Wednesday nights, Thursday nights, Friday nights, Tuesday nights, Monday nights. Wrestling owned things. And now it's really one night a week if you think of Raw, maybe two with SmackDown. Other than that, wrestling doesn't own what it used to own. Bro, wrestling owned the footprint of, especially the South. I mean, I'm not even going to go up to the North.
Yeah.
Dude, 7 days a week. You think about Mid-South, Harper, where we grew up on. Dude, they were in the Civic Center, St. Bernard Civic Center once a week. They'd go to Houma. They'd go to Thibodaux. They're in Shreveport. I mean, they're doing these 7 days a week. They're in another town. And people were coming out to see it.
So what would happen, and this is no shade at all because it's the state of the business, but what would happen if Wildcat ran on a Tuesday night somewhere?
Nothing.
I mean, and it's not their fault. It's just that the crowds are now conditioned to not have to do that. Back then, wrestling owned the sports world. Plus, I think Flair and
I remember my dad taking me to shows, and it was during the week.
Middle of the week, right?
Yeah.
You get home from work and 7 o'clock bell time. You get there at 6 o'clock and you go see some wrestling and you head home. But that was how it was back then. You had all and now it's like Monday and Tuesday night. That's all we got. But back then, dude, I can't even think, dude. If somebody ran on a Wednesday night, just average day of this calendar, I mean, you might put 100 people in there most, 150, and that's if it's a good indie show. And people just not going out. They owned sports. Like, there was a time, they called it the Kings of Sport. I mean, it was the thing to do. Plus, Doc, this is another thing we're not talking about. There were a lot less pro teams then, too. Like, Charlotte didn't have pro teams back then. So, in the NWA territory. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, I mean, but wrestling owned things, and now it's not like that, and it's kind of depressing.
Yeah, it sucks, man.
Well, and I'm not saying it could ever get back to that, but if you don't treat it seriously, there is no chance for it to get back to that. And that's why I quit watching this shit I quit. WWE, I quit. I'll read to know what's going I'll read so I can know what's going on so that I can shit on it with you guys, but they don't treat this shit seriously, so fuck them.
I hear you. All right, let's get to some honorable mentions. Honorable mention for me, I did have the NWA TV title on my honorable mentions. I also had the NWA US title, and I'm not talking about when they went to WCW. They had a cool-looking US title back in the day. That was one of my honorable mentions. The NWA had some US tag belts. So not only did they have the world, but they had the U.S. tag team titles in the 80s, too. I had that on mine. I also included, and this will be one that most people won't remember, but the UWF under Bill Watts, not Herb Abrams, when they went national from Mid-South, they had a UWF heavyweight title, and they had a UWF TV title, and I've posted it on our Facebook page before. Those titles were really, really sweet looking. They were really, really good looking. The UWF didn't last for long, and most people don't remember them, but those are some of my honorable mentions. Doc, were you even able to get to honorable mentions, or was this so hard you didn't even go there?
I have 3.
Okay, go ahead.
One is the Intercontinental title, the same one that Harper had. Another one is one we have not discussed, which was the AWA Heavyweight Championship. Just big belt. Picture in my mind, Bockwinkel holding it back in the 80s. And they treated their championship pretty seriously as well. And then another one that I don't know just a whole lot about, but I know that it is defended to this day with a whole lot of reverence. It is treated as a big deal, and it is treated much like probably the NWA championship was treated back in the 80s, and that is the IWGP heavyweight championship out of New Japan.
I kind of feel guilty now that I didn't include some Japan titles in this. Now that you say that, because some of those are really, really good-looking belts, and they're really prestigious. They treat them well. Damn. Now that you say that, I kind of feel bad about it. Right.
Yeah, I was thinking about it.
And here's the thing. When they show, like, this is the part I love about the New Japan show on Access. When somebody wins the title or somebody successfully defends the title, they show how many defenses that is. They'll say this is their 14th defense of the title. Awesome touch.
And it's treating it like a real sport.
That's right.
That. Something that company up north doesn't do. They don't treat it well. Harper, did you have any honorable mentions before we get out of here?
They got the AWA title. The NWA 6-man tag team title from the 80s.
I remember that one.
I thought that one looked cool looking, and I have the old WCW the US belt with the eagle.
Yeah.
And
I almost put in the
flag.
world-class six-man trophy as a. It ain't a belt, but they had a trophy they carried around. Von Erickson Freebirds for a while.
I remember
Trophy?
that. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, there were a couple of trophies. There was.
I mean, it
brass
wasn't
knuckles
like
trophy, too.
a slammy. Owen Hart carrying a slammy around. This shit was tall. I mean, it came
Yeah.
up to their waist.
Yeah, there was a big trophy. I remember that. There was all. I mean, we're not even getting into this. This is a whole nother topic. But like, there were different like almost medallions that you'd wear around your neck too. There were a couple of trophies like that. I call them trophies, but titles like that. There was the 6-man trophy that the Von Erichs had. I do remember that one.
Hey,
There was a few brass knuckles trophies.
Hey, Menace, you're a former brass knucks champion. Didn't you have a trophy?
Yes, I had a trophy. It was big. That bitch was as tall as me too.
Where is
Well,
it?
that's not very tall.
Where is it? It got destroyed actually. They did an angle. It was when I lost it that they destroyed it. But whatever, it's not about me.
So did you have a pair of brass knucks that you wore out there for the match?
I sure did, and I wish you'd have been in the business. So I could have fucking hardweight you, you fucking prick. How's
Who
that
did
sound?
you beat? Who did you beat for your first brass knucks championship?
Oh, it was a Royal Rumble type match.
Oh, you
And,
love battle royals.
No, not really. It was like a Royal Rumble type match. It was called a Lethal Lottery Battle Royal. But like the person that I actually feuded with the most when I had that stupid title is Rod Price. Like we did a whole series of matches, and he's the one that actually ended up beating me for it. But anyway, it is what it is. Whatever.
Brother, it's time
Brother.
for me to wear the gold.
Brother, it's all a work.
Yeah.
All right, y'all. So, hey, here's the thing. Let's throw it over. We got to get to Bobby Blaze. Remember, this is part 1 with Bobby Blaze. So let's get to that right now. You know what? Fuck this. Let's. I said we were going to close it out. No, we'd pick up at the end, but let me do the plugs first, and then we'll get out of here. So, hey, if you're a first-time listener, please subscribe to us. You know the drill. iTunes, Podbean, Stitcher. And please, we need some 5-star ratings. We need some more of them. So get those
You bitches
5-star
are
ratings on iTunes.
lazy out there. We need a 5-star
How
rating.
hard is that, man? For real?
It really.
You
Y'all
lazy
just
fucks.
insulted the fans. And,
It's
and
the
you're
least
asking-
you could do.
You just insulted fans, and you want a 5-star review.
But there are a bunch of marks. There are marks for this show.
You're a
Give us
fucking
a
mark,
5-star
asshole.
rating. I
Nazi
gave-
fans. If they can't just go hit fucking 5. Dicks.
Shut up, you kids, dude. Well, you know what? To say you want a 5-star review, you sure are treating the people bad.
How about every 5-star review you got? You
How
leave
about
your
you
name.
go fuck
Hey, hold
yourself?
on. Check this out. Every 5-star review you leave your name. I'll cough in a blanket and send it to you.
Yeah. Follow us on to Doc's just kidding, everybody. Give us a 5-star review. Follow us on Twitter at BTT_podcast. I'm at Mike504Saints. Hardbody Hopper is at CGH Whodat. Doc is so intelligent he can't remember his Twitter password, so he's a fucking mentally irregular idiot. Shout-outs at Fun WWE Polls. Check them out. This week, I actually believe that Raw won the poll. So that's like only the second or third time.
Who gives
since
a
it started.
shit?
Who gives a shit?
At Denim Fritz 605. Thank you, man. I appreciate all your support. Happy Thanksgiving, man. And at Mullet of Morton, at Fake Stan Lane. Happy Thanksgiving to you guys as well. At Fake Stan Lane, Doc, did you get my tweet? He corrected us. His name is not Stanfield Lane on
Wallace.
our Smoky Mountain show. It is Wallace Stanfield Lane, and I actually looked it up, and Stan Lane's right. So even though he's the fake Stan Lane,
Fake Stan Lane knows Stan Lane's name. Shocking.
he corrected me. He said the name is Wallace Stanfield Lane. Apology accepted. Was
Way
the
to keep
tweet
us
that he sent
straight.
me.
Way to keep us straight, Fake Stan Lane.
Thank you, Fake Stan. We appreciate that, brother. At Godbold Unreal, I want to give you a special shout-out. At James E. Barnett. This man, whoever is manning this Twitter, is very supportive of our Smoky Mountain Wrestling, and I'm really appreciative of him. He tweets us all the time, and it's just good to know. At Holy Moly, he's the Ole Anderson Twitter, and that's a miserable fucking twisted curmudgeon on there. He's very funny. At Mike Skills Tim, I don't know what to say about you yet, but thank you for tweeting us. At the Eye of Gibson, at Gino's Baked Goods, and at CM Cepeda. Thank you for always your retweets and tweets to us. We really appreciate it. Next thing, I want to shout out at Dean Coles 1987 for all the videos he sent me recently on Ron Wright and Tim Horner. Actually, he was the one who sent me the Ron Wright promo that we covered this week. I want to shout out at Martin Howell71 on Twitter for the Star Blazer photo, which is Tim Horner and WCW. Good stuff as always, Marty. And lastly, I want to shout out at C8Kin4 for his tweet telling me and Doc that Bob Caudle is the greatest announcer of all time. We do love us some Bob fucking Caudle on Smoky Mountain Wrestling. And hey, Jim Cornette, I got your tweet yesterday about Happy Thanksgiving and thanking Doc and I for keeping Smoky Mountain Wrestling alive. So thank you at Jim Cornette. Jim Cornette has been retweeting every single Smoky Mountain episode. Ain't that awesome, Doc? I mean, seriously, come on, man.
It really is.
I mean, he has retweeted every one of them since like episode 2 or 3, I want to say. So thank you, Jim Cornette. I don't think you're listening to this, but I just want to publicly say thank you on the podcast. Also, if you want to donate to the show because you really, really enjoy what we do, click the PayPal link in the show notes or click the PayPal link at mikemills.podbean.com. We could use a buck or two here or there. Also want to say our Pro Wrestling Tees store, again, mikemills.podbean.com at the very top is our Pro Wrestling Tees. If you are listening to this, they're running the Black Friday sale. There's 20% off of your entire order. So never been a better time to buy a Book in the Territory podcast Pro Wrestling t-shirt. There's 4 designs. Check them all out. We'd appreciate it if you do so. Facebook. We're at facebook.com/Book in the Territory. Please like the page. We'd appreciate it. Also, comment on the shows, man. I get a lot of people tweeting us, but not many people on the Facebook page commenting on the shows. So when I post them, please comment. Tell us what you like. Tell us what you hated. If you want Doc to go fuck himself, please tell him.
I'm doing that to myself right now.
I bet you
Hey, yeah. Put the lotion in the baskets.
are. Okay, is Amy over there right now? Okay. Thank you
She's
to our sponsor.
she's in the kitchen drinking the gravy.
Oh, Jesus Christ. I want to thank our sponsors, the Wrestling Palace, located in Traders Village. For those of you in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, they are your one-stop shop for all of your wrestling memorabilia needs. If you're not in DFW, they will ship to you. So give my buddy Arturo a call, 469-337-8537. And if you just search them on Facebook, The Wrestling Palace, it'll come up. He's got all kinds of shit. If you're a wrestling collector, he's got so much shit, it's unreal. It's just unbelievable, and he'll give you a good deal on it. And lastly, I got to shout out a couple of friends of ours. The King of the Mountain podcast, your TNA Wrestling Review Impact show. Shout out to the greatest classic wrestling podcast there is, the 605 Super Podcast, run by the great Brian Lass. I want to say I really enjoyed listening to not only our guest this week, Bobby Blaze, when he was a guest a few weeks ago, but I also listened to Bobby Fulton on there with some really, really good stuff. And he's got on, who do you have on this week?
Travis Heckle.
Travis Heckle and Adrian Street. Travis really did a good job. So, Travis, if you're listening to this, exceptional job, man. I really enjoyed listening to you on the show, man. You did a good job. And, you know, Brian is a classic wrestling expert and genius, so that he covers every single territory. His knowledge of all the territories is unreal. So if you like our show, you're going to like their show, so check them out. And then lastly, thank you to Mike Crockett and Brian Malonis, the Kingpin. Kingpin, I don't give a fuck what you say. Northeastern Wrestling is the drizzling shits, and Southern fucking wrestling rules forever. And Brian, with that, happy Thanksgiving, man. I appreciate all the support you and Mike Crockett give to the show. Again, this week's promo of the week at the very end of the episode is the 1980s USA Wrestling with Ron Wright. Like I mentioned during the body of this show and what Doc covered for us, you will enjoy it. And lastly, if you haven't already done so, check out our Smoky Mountain Wrestling podcast. Bobby Blaze and I are about to have a long discussion about Smoky Mountain Wrestling. It's only part 1. We had a real good time. It just, look, I can't explain it enough. We are watching this Smoky Mountain shit, and it is 10 times better than anything you're watching on that WWE product. And that's all I got to say. For Mike and Doc, you got anything?
I got one quick thing. If you if the YouTube link that Mike puts up for the Ron Wright doesn't work and you want to get on a watch list, government watch list, go to YouTube and type in Ron Wright swastika and it'll come up.
Okay. There you go. Oh, Harper, you got anything before we get out of here?
No. No. I mean, no.
Okay. Yeah, because your next show is not till January at this point, right?
Yeah, January 7th. So
January 7th. We got some time to plug that.
Yeah.
And Stevie Richards is the new Wildcat Heavyweight Champion. Is that right?
Right. He beat Buku Dao. And Danny Flamingo is the new Revolution champion.
Unfucking real.
I know, huh?
That motherfucker's head must be as big as. Jesus
yeah,
Christ.
He was freaking walking around a bar.
With the strap on his shoulder.
Yeah.
I saw the pictures.
Taking pictures with these freaking white trash freaking morons at 3 o'clock in the morning.
I saw the pictures. He's walking around the barroom with the strap on his shoulders, Doc. It was great. Oh, boy.
Sounds like my kind of guy.
Yeah.
Danny fucking Flamingo. Good job, Kevin.
Living the gimmick.
Hey, former Booking the Territory podcast guest. Let me just say that.
You got that rocket ship tied to your back.
Former Booking the Territory podcast guest. And look, Bobby Blaze doesn't say it on part 1, but Bobby Blaze popped me so good in our discussion. He literally at one point is like putting over the show while we're talking. He goes, "When you're booking the fucking territory, man." So I can't wait to play that on a soundbite on next week's episode. I'll get it together. Anyway, that's all we got. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. We hope you have a good one. Hopefully you enjoyed this week's episode. We were going a little long this week, but that's what happens when you're having a good fucking time and enjoying talking about some old school wrestling with the title belts. Thanks again to @OldWrestlingPick on Twitter. We appreciate the topic. It was a good one. Hard one, but good one. You guys do a great job. Keep it on, and thank you very much. So from Mike and Doc, you know what we always say when we throw it over to the interviews for the week. Hit the tagline, Harper.
Book it, bitch.
All right, everybody. I'm sitting here with Bobby Blaze, former Smoky Mountain Wrestling heavyweight champion. Bobby, man, I appreciate you doing Booking the Territory Pro Wrestling podcast with me tonight.
Oh, man, it's a pleasure being here. I'm so glad to be on Booking the Territory, and I love all the old territory wrestling. I love the podcast, getting the opportunity to do those things. So thank you very much for having me on your program.
Hey, no problem, Bobby. Oh, you know, what's funny is I wanted to reiterate before we started recording, if we could rehash the discussion we just had before I hit the record button. So Bobby and I don't know each other, but we got a lot in common. As most people know who listen to this show, I'm a foul-mouthed son of a bitch. And I mean no disrespect to anyone when I'm cursing my ass off weekly, but Bobby is just like me. So I think me and Bobby going to get along great tonight.
Yes, I hope so. Yeah, we had a little brief conversation there, and I'm just a no-filter motherfucker. That's all there is to it. Been that way my whole life, and probably ain't going to change. And just a brief conversation I had with you off the air there, man. I know we hit it off great, and it's a pleasure to be on your show. So thank you very much, man. I appreciate the newfound friendship.
Hey, no problem, Bobby, no problem. Hey, so you know, just like me, you've been a fan. I don't know where you're a wrestler, but you were a fan of wrestling since you were young, like 5, 6 years old. I wanted to ask you, man, what was it about wrestling that lured you in at such an early age? And just a note real quick. So I grew up watching Mid-South Wrestling in New Orleans because that's where I'm from. And about that same age, 5 years old, is when I got hooked on Mid-South. So what was it about that age when you became a big wrestling fan that lured you in?
Yeah, I don't know. You know, I remember being about 5, 6 years old and seeing, you know, some matches from the old WWF when I was in Baltimore. And then I moved to Eastern Kentucky. And so about a year and a half after that, so I was probably about 8, my brother comes out and says, "Hey, you got to see this." And he's a little younger than me. So I hadn't really watched it. I knew what it was when I saw it because we had the Colts and the Orioles and things like that. So I remember those young sports things, you know. Well, anyway, and I was never a fan of the WWF because I was just a little kid, but I liked it. So anyway, we moved to Kentucky. We got the old Memphis wrestling, and he ran outside. He ran outside one day on a Saturday and said, "Man, you got to see this. Come inside." And I've told this story before. It's we probably had a little 19-inch black and white TV, and man, on that TV was professional wrestling. And I just saw the guys fighting, you know, like a Bill Dundee and Jerry Lawler thing, probably the tail end of the Memphis show, the hour show or whatever. And, man, I was just like, I remembered it. Just something clicked. Like I remember seeing the matches, you know, just a year and a half before that prior to the move. And I was like, oh, man, that's professional wrestling, you know. And there was something, the guys were just, to me, and I wrote about this, and I'm not going to just sit here and plug books. That's not what I'm here to be on your show, and I appreciate it. But my first book, I tell a little story about that. To me, a professional wrestler, man, was just the baddest cat, the baddest motherfucker in your neighborhood, man. You know, when they came, when I started going to the shows, you see these guys, you know, bleached blonde hair and muscles. And of course, they don't have the muscles like they do now, but they're big, strong guys. And even guys like, you know, a shorter guy like Superstar Dundee, my brother liked him because my brother's shorter, and even as an adult. But the bottom line is what I'm getting at, those cats were just bad. You just knew they was in there, they was taking care of business. If they said they was going to, you know, break someone's arm, you believed they was going to break someone's arm, but they had just cause to. And it was that era of wrestling, and we didn't know it then, of course, of heels and babyface. We knew good guys and bad guys, and we just knew. And then, you know, some of the people that come through Memphis, because I didn't get to watch the UWF till later on, of course, years later. But anyway, at this point, when I'm watching the old Memphis and eventually the old ICW, there was something about it, man. You just knew, like when they brought in someone like Terry Funk, for example, and he was going after Lawler, and you just knew someone's getting their ass kicked. And I was one of these people that always cheered for the heels anyway, being a prick I am. So even as a young person, it was just something appealing about this guy is getting one over on that good guy, this bad guy is. So the heel's getting that one over on that baby face. And of course, we're young at that time, so we don't know exactly what. But then all of a sudden, 2-3 weeks down, you know, way back before pay-per-views, as you and I know, that babyface got his fucking revenge, man.
Yeah.
And cheered for that. You know, if you cheered for that, you knew that bad guy or that heel got his just desserts, if you will.
Yep. But
of course, as a heel fan, you're like, that son of a bitch. And then someone else would come in and work a program with the babyface and start it again.
Yep.
They were like superheroes, man. And they were just bad motherfuckers to me.
Yeah.
It was real. They were real. They were real.
Oh, yeah. I talk about it all the time. Like, you know, obviously the name of the show is Booking the Territory. And the reason we named it that was because me and my two co-hosts, one of them, Doc Turner, and another gentleman, Hardbody Harper, you know, we all grew up watching territories. And Doc grew up in Dallas, so he watched World Class. Me and Harper grew up watching Mid-South. And, yeah, man, we talk about how real it was back then. You see two guys, and they'd get in there and kick the fuck out of each other for an hour of TV every, you know, Saturday and Sunday, depending on when it came on in your area. And it was just pure entertainment. And it's hard to explain to a wrestling fan nowadays who's just jumping into it because it's just not the same.
And I imagine that Mid-South, when you was watching it, what you're talking about there, man, I could just imagine how much ass kicking and same like I saw Memphis. You believed it, man. You knew it was fucking real. And just like whether it was World Class, you knew someone was coming in, and it was just real. You know,
it was real. You couldn't convince me otherwise. You could not convince me otherwise.
I'm sorry, I wasn't trying to overtalk you. That's the thing. Nowadays, what you said earlier, you have a hard time trying to convince these younger people about territories, you know, because when you had those territories, see, you're watching something out there in New Orleans, someone else watching something out there in Dallas, I'm watching something out in Kentucky, and, you know, someone else is watching something out on the East Coast or whatever. But the bottom line, and someone's probably watching something in California, all these different territories, it was tremendous. You can call it regionalized territories, whatever. It was something about it that guys would come, and you had your mainstay guys, but you also had new, fresh guys coming in every 3-6 months or whatever to start a program. You got to see even other great performers or wrestlers or what have you and start those programs. And the angles, which again, we're young, we didn't know what this called, but we knew something was going to happen. And it's almost like when you go to the school ground back then, you know, so-and-so don't like this cat, and this guy don't like that guy. And they're going to fight after school, you know, and it's that realism, man.
Personal issues.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Personal issues. Nowadays, everyone's like, well, I know those guys, they share the same locker room, or I know they all, you know, work for a certain company, and they're on TV, and they're making all this money, and they're doing, well, you know, back then, though, man, these guys, they were taking stuff. If they had something personal, they would take it to the ring and worked it into an angle. And it's just one of those things that, it's hard to explain to someone younger that when the territories were around, man, how much more real it appeared to be. And it's one of those things where back then it seemed like, and I think professional wrestling is an art form to a degree. And back then you had guys that weren't hurting each other because they were such skilled wrestlers and workers, but it looked like, and they made you believe it was fucking real. Nowadays, you got guys actually hurting each other and make it look like shit. And that's not a dig on anyone's product. I'm just saying.
Right.
Back then, it looked them guys, if they got hurt, they didn't work, so they were taking care of each other. But my God, it looked like they was ripping arms off and heads would roll, and you knew it.
Yeah.
And the interviews were so real. They were so personal. When I come to New Orleans on Saturday night at the Superdome, or if I'm going to be in the Omni in Atlanta on this Sunday or this Thanksgiving, perfect example. This Thanksgiving, in the Omni on Thanksgiving at 7:30, who was going to be there, and someone was going to get their ass kicked. And, that kind of thing.
We talk about it on the Smoky Mountain show because we've been talking about the different promos as we're doing Smoky Mountain, Doc and I, and we always say, I've always heard the term, talk them into the building, and that's the thing you're talking about is being able to talk them into the building. Now, if you watch wrestling nowadays, and I'm not trying to knock the product, but nobody talks anybody into the building anymore. It's not there at all.
Man, what I haven't thought about that forever. I done another show there, and I was talking about Tracy Smothers used to do a thing. He'd put his fingers up to his head, and he'd say, "Think them in, Bobby. Think them in. Think the fans into the building. Think them up to the gimmick tables and stuff like that." But you're exactly right. Nowadays, no one talks them into the building. You got these scripted bullshit. I don't watch a lot of product, but I do watch today's product. But you're right. Even on some of the indie shows, man, you've got to have a reason to want to go to that show.
Yeah.
And I always try to be a fan. I try to look at it as a fan, as one of the boys, and also just loving professional wrestling. But you're right, man. I hadn't thought about that forever. No one is actually talking them in. This is why you need to come to, Cincinnati, Ohio, or Baltimore, Maryland, or New Orleans, Louisiana, or Los Angeles, California, wherever they're at. You wanted the people to, if it's at the local high school or National Guard Armory, the ICW, hell, them guys used to talk us into, coming to see that show.
Yep.
So yeah, you're spot on that, man. Spot on.
Well, Bobby, I want to ask you. So, like I said, Doc and I are doing this walkthrough of Smoky Mountain. We're planning on going through every single episode. We haven't gotten to when you come into the territory yet, but I thought, from the being that you spent so much time and spent a good bit of time in Smoky Mountain, I wanted to ask you, we're getting a tremendous amount of feedback from the listener of ours about revisiting Smoky Mountain. I can't tell you how many tweets I get each week when the show drops, people going, "Man, we just love this. We love it. Smoky Mountain is great. We love what y'all are doing with the positivity y'all are putting on it." In your opinion, as someone who worked in Smoky Mountain, what made Smoky Mountain so special to you?
Well, of course, you've got Jim Cornette, who's just a brainchild, a tremendous brain of the business. We had Sandy Scott there, who was also, just tremendous behind-the-scenes person. When it first started, I had been in contact with Jim Cornette for over 9 months prior to actually getting a tryout and then eventually starting. I think this is the best thing I could tell you is, before I even started, I went to a show. I had sent off some promo stuff to him and then was going to be in the area. I was traveling to a couple other territories. Actually, I'd been to Australia and I'd been over in Canada up there working full time. And so I had traveled quite a bit. And anyway, I was home. It was near my area. And I went to a show and met Cornette in person and rehanded him my stuff again. And so what I'm getting at is this. From that first show, and I wasn't, part of the company or anything. I just went as a fan, met Jimmy, handed him some stuff, and he said, "Stick around, watch the show if you want to." I said, "I have every intention of doing so." The locker room morale was great. So you had the brainchild of Cornette. You had Tim Horner there that was helping. You had Sandy Scott. You had Mark Curtis. Brian Hildebrand, bless his heart. He got the name. He always told me, I got my name honestly. I'm a Mark. And so you had the people putting in, and then the locker room morale. You had the heels on one side, you had a baby face on the other, and everyone that was there, you had a good combination of veterans from the early on with Robert Gibson till we got to the Rock and Roll Express reuniting type thing. And I'm glad you're doing this Smoky Mountain on your book in the territories, because it was one of the last true territories I think around, and I had the honor of working there. But you also had that just the morale of whoever you worked with, everyone on the card was trying to do their job and deliver the best in-ring product that we could deliver. Again, prior to me even getting there, I think they were trying to guys were working together to draw money, to draw people in and see what Smoky Mountain was all about. From early on, when you had guys from other territories, Bobby Fulton, Hustler Rip Rogers, they brought in, Arn Anderson and Bobby Eaton, some of those. So, and then it just started building. So you had a good array of veterans with some younger guys that came in. And like when I eventually came in, we knew to shut our mouth, listen, and learn. And even though I had been working, several years at that time, I'd only been working full time for 2 years. But I knew enough that, man, when Ricky Morton tells you something, you're like, man, this. When he says, Bobby, watch how, and I never forget this. He told me in Johnson City, Tennessee, at Freedom Hall. He said, Bobby, and I'd been there probably 2 months, and he said, watch how I sell tonight. And I knew from rooming with Robert, him telling me a couple of things. So they believe it or not, they never roomed together very often. And I'd room with whoever, and I'd pick people's brains. And Robert would say this, and then Ricky would say that. And I was like, and then I'm around Cornette, so how can I not learn from those kind of guys? Yeah. And I think everyone that came through there was, whether it was an up-and-comer or a veteran, they knew to work together, and the morale was good, and it was a good product. It was even the guys that came in and done TV that put other guys over, and I don't know what you all, if you call them jobbers, enhancement talent, or just making TVs only. All the guys that came through, 98% of those guys could work too, and so whether they won or lost, they was going to go out there and have a good match. Very seldom. And as you're going through it, you don't see a whole lot of squashes. You see some, pretty damn good competitive matches. So the TV was a good part of that, And then when you went to the towns, man, just this area, probably just like back when you was talking about the Mid-South, it was the right time for people to come out, and we talked them into the building. They saw a good in-ring product, a lot of guys that could do interviews with Cornette. Bullet Bob Armstrong as the commissioner. I mean, you had a lot of guys that just really worked together. That's probably the big key. And it's like anything, probably just like with your podcast with your co-host, it's you guys working together, not against each other, a good common cause. This is what we like. We like the territories of professional wrestling, and that's what Smoky Mountain. The guys were there. And I had a chance to actually leave at one time to go to Atlanta prior to, or WCW, prior to when I did eventually go there once Smoky Mountain shut down. I wouldn't leave. I loved it. I loved it that damn much, because I loved the morale and I loved the travel of it. We had a good schedule. We worked 3 or 4 nights a week, and, you get 15, 16 bookings on a good month. You might get 12 on a slow month, but you could always do extra independent shows as long as it didn't conflict with your schedule. So, it was just a whole bunch of people working together, man, to put together the best product we could at the time.
Yeah, let me tell you, like I was telling you before we started recording, or maybe while we were recording, I can't even remember. We're, we've my co-host has watched every single episode. I'm only up to about episode 30, so we're just in the very beginning, but we've only recorded up through 20 at this point, and we've released about 12 of them. But I can tell you, just in watching it, guys like Ron Wright. I mean, that guy is tremendous on the mic.
I know about him off there. Sorry about that, Ron. Bless his heart.
Yeah. Oh man, every week as we're doing the reviews and recaps, just listening to Ron Wright, I mean, he's a legend to me at this point. And here's the thing, Bobby, I don't want you to think less of me. I didn't know who Ron Wright was until I started watching Smoky Mountain, because I didn't grow up in a territory that was exposed to him. That I was exposed to Ron Wright. But now going back and watching him, Ron Wright's a fucking legend. I mean, he's tremendous.
Yes.
Guys like him, and go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, and he was apparently more over in East Tennessee area versus West, so I didn't really get to see him till later on either. And so I really had little knowledge of all the stuff he had done prior to coming to Smoky Mountain. So I'm right there with you, man, because I didn't see a lot of his stuff on TV in my area at that time. And he is a legend. Man, I mean, when he passed away here just a year and a half ago maybe, man, I'm telling you, I saw several of these newspaper clippings, due to social media now, and I was reading it, I was like, my God, what a fucking legend. I was around, I knew it at the time, but I didn't, you know what I'm saying? It's one of those things you don't appreciate till afterwards. But like yourself, when I was younger, I didn't know how over the guy was. I'd heard his name, but like I said, he was more out in East Tennessee, and when he did do something out in Memphis, or they did, broadcast something, it was very minimum at the most, so... Yeah. So I didn't mean to cut you off, but yes, I left Ron off of there. But what a fucking legend,
The nuclear heat magnet, man. he was tremendous. Hey, you got to work with Buddy Landel in Smoky Mountain Wrestling, right?
Yes, absolutely.
We've heard about Buddy and his demons, and not to demonize Buddy at this point, but Buddy really seemed to be clicking during his time in Smoky Mountain, especially in like '95. What you got any good memories that you want to share about Buddy and just working with him and working an angle with him in Smoky Mountain Wrestling?
Yeah, I wrote in my book, my second book is out right now, and I will give it a cheap plug. I kicked out on The Educational Wrestler. I do a thing where I do memories of some of the guys that have passed away. I first met Buddy Landel back in 1988, and I was watching a match. We was on the same show, and I was in like the third match or something like that. And anyway, blah, blah, blah. Someone didn't show up, so Buddy says, well, put that boy there with me. So me and Buddy went out and did a tag match against Jimmy Valiant, Hector Guerrero. And I had about 12 or 15 matches, but I hadn't been to Malenko's where I eventually trained at.
Right.
I was on a ring apron, and I saw these guys, and I thought, holy shit. Then I realized what a work it really was. No one had really smartened me up. I've been kind of working the same little kind of guys I've been wrestling with that broke me in, Anyway, long story short, from there, when I got to Smoky Mountain, so I was a Buddy Landel fan, just so you know. I really was. So when I get to Smoky Mountain, he had actually been let go. And Buddy would be the first one to tell you, even if he is here today, everyone knows he had the demons, and he was sharing with you. And like myself, I think there's probably a lot of people out there that's dealt with a lot of demons.
Yeah,
And I know I have, and Buddy was open about that. But anyway, he had been let go right before I got there. I don't want to give anything away for your fans that are going to be watching the programming, but something had happened and he got let go. And so when he came back well, I had already been there for a year and a half or whatever, and he was a breath of fresh air when he came back. And when he came back that time, for the most part, he was clean, sober, and I spoke to Buddy probably a year on and off prior to his death, and anything I'll say right now about Buddy, I don't want anyone to think I'm talking ill of the dead. I put some of it in my book, and these are things I've told Buddy to his face, so it's nothing that I wouldn't have said, and if he was still here today, I would still say the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
But when Buddy Landel was on, Buddy Landel was on. When he was off, he was off. And even when he was fighting demons, he would still try to give you a good match in the ring. But now, when he was hitting a stride, like you said, about 95 or so, when Buddy wanted to be on, Buddy was on, and man, there was none better. Him and Shawn Michaels tore the building down one night at the Super Bowl of Wrestling, which you'll eventually get to, I'm sure. and then he and we worked the whole program together. And I'm not going to give anything away on that because your fans will get to see that as well. But I was around Buddy, you know, for probably a year, and my best couple memories are this. I used to promote my hometown, which is Ashland, Kentucky. It's a small town in eastern Kentucky. The closest TV was about 30 miles away. And what had happened was, and I'll try to get to this real quickly, Buddy came to town and was going to wrestle me as the main event. And at this point, it wasn't over the title. So, again, I'm not trying not to give anything away of what happened on the title. But anyway, he was in a kind of a bad mood, if you will. You know, for whatever reason, there was no heat between me and him or anything like that. Buddy was just being Buddy. And some people would tell you when Buddy wanted to be an asshole, he could be. And apparently he just got in a bad mood, got in a bad way. But anyway, I'm already in the ring, and as he comes to the ring, a fan actually jumps up over a barrier and reaches across, and Buddy stuck his chin out, you know, for the guy to slap him or hit him, and the guy actually scraped Buddy's face. And when he did, Buddy dropped off off the apron, and he punched this guy in the face, and he went down. And when he went down, Buddy Landell just punted this guy. I mean, he just punted his fucking head. And security was right there on top of it, of course. And Buddy, as soon as he come up, he still had his robe on, and the punch just glazed the guy enough to knock him off balance. But the fucking kick was like an NFL punt. Well, when Buddy jumped back up on, because security had two guys, had the guy, and the guy was, of course, staggering as they was carrying him out. I'm in the ring going, come on, you motherfucker. Come on, Buddy. God damn it. Come on. Because there's a good house here, 500-600 people at the time. As soon as Buddy grabbed that top rope of his rope, he was like, Bobby, beat me up. Because the fans had just seen us shoot, basically. So they weren't going to buy us going in there chain wrestling, if you will. You know, so he still had his robe on. Of course, I brought him in the hard way by his hair, and man, I just started, and I stayed on him. And I didn't hurt him, but I kicked the shit out of him. Now, boom, 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 boom. You know, if you can see my hands now, I'm beating him on the back with forearms. You know, and I stayed on him for pretty much the whole match. I'd give him something. It was almost like I was the heel just eating him up, but I was the baby face. But I had to. And then Buddy would try to cut me off, and he'd say, get back on me, and I'd go again. And it wasn't a squash by any means, but, I was just beating the shit out of him, and because we knew it was a main event. We knew we had to get our time in, and also the fans had just seen us shoot. And he was smart in that regard that he knew what had to happen. Well, fast forward the following month, when he comes back to the town, of course, the crowd's up, and at this point, there's been some title things going on between Buddy and I, and basically the TV advertisements hadn't aired in this area with me having lost the title, which I'll eventually win or lose. I don't want to give too much away. But anyway, what I'm getting at is the Buddy had the title, and I was like, Buddy, I've been advertised on TV as the champion. What are we going to do? Because he was the champion.
Right.
And he said, let me think about it. Sandy Scott was the agent. Cornette wasn't here that night. And I told Sandy, I said, Sandy, I'll walk out the title. I'll drop it just like I did, a few weeks back. The TV hadn't aired yet. They're showing me as a champion. Or whatever you want, whatever's best for business. Buddy sit there and thought about it, and I thought, fuck. And we was kind of butting heads, to be honest with you. But anyway, we're in my hometown. Again, we're looking at probably 600-700 people. And so it's easy for me to get over as a baby face and him to get over as a heel, no matter who went out there with that strap, because of what they had seen the previous month. Anyway, about 5 minutes for the match, Buddy gives me a finish. And I agree to it. He walks out the title, of course. We have a match, and we do the deal where he goes into the tights to get the chain or the gimmick or whatever. The referee already took a bump where I blocked the chain. I grab it. I glom Buddy. He drops out right in the middle of the ring in my hometown, flat on his back. Pin him when Curtis is turned, coming over to hands and knees. 1, 2, 3. Raises my hand. rewards me with the title, and you're new and second time, Smoky Mountain champion. It comes over, everyone is going nuts. Buddy is laying there selling the knockout punch. And, of course, when they raise my hand, I've got the strap in one hand, but I got the chain on the other. And they reversed the decision. And so that popped big time when I won it. But then Buddy was still laying there. I went over and laid the title across his stomach in a not so gentle fashion, but, in an angry way. Right. Where the champion is laying in the middle of the fucking ring, knocked out cold, with the belt laying on him. And that finish got over huge. And I walked back to the dressing room, and Sandy Scott was like, Bobby, who called that finish? And the way he said it, I thought, oh, shit, we've got heat. But I knew the crowd reaction was there. And I was like, because he was a little bit leery about what we was going to do, because Buddy really hadn't said, what we was going to do. And I just said, we'll do what's best for business. And he said, I said, Buddy did, but I agreed to it. He said, Bobby, he just caught a fucking $1 million finish for you. He made you look like $1 million in your hometown. And he said, what a fucking finish. Way to go, kid. And Sandy and Buddy had heat before. That was one of the reasons he got fired earlier on, from my understanding. But anyway, at this point, Buddy was on the up, doing real good, like you said, hitting a stride. Mm-hmm. And man, when he come back through, of course, he eventually leaves the ring and people are leaving, whatever. Man, I just gave him a big hug. I said, I love you, brother, so that's my best memory of all the matches we had, and we probably wrestled 50 times. But those two where he hit the fan, rightfully so, because he was on the other side of the barricade, and they escorted him out, and I beat Buddy up to make it what we had to do, and then him coming back the next week, or next month rather, and dropping the strap, but then a reverse decision. And Buddy did that, and that's pure professionalism, and that's also knowing the business and knowing your fans, your fan base. So that's my best, bless his heart, that's my best Buddy Landel story, because I'm not someone that talks ill of the dead, and I don't want to demonize or talk about his demons, because we all know him, like we said. But Buddy to me was pure gold, man. He was a class act, and he treated me very good, and we got along. Even when we butted heads, we always done what was best for business, and I always respected that in Buddy.
Yeah, I always respected Buddy in the ring and whatnot. I thought Buddy was a damn good pro wrestler, damn good performer, and yeah, I mean, we all got, maybe not the same demons, but hey, nobody's perfect, and Buddy was very entertaining professional wrestler, and I enjoyed watching him over the years. I can tell you that much. Definitely did. But hey, so I wanted to ask you, you also, and I'm going to give away a little spoiler here for people who are watching along with this. You beat the Dirty White Boy to win the first Smoky Mountain Wrestling Beat the Champ, to get the first Smoky Mountain Wrestling Beat the Champ title. That's correct, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So we discussed a lot of times on the show. I think that Dirty White Boy, just watching him cut promos, watching him in the ring, I think he may have been underrated by people who don't know any better. How was he to work with?
Well, when that happened at first, first of all, Dirty White Boy thought that the Smoky Mountain title and every other fucking title was his, because he lived in the Knoxville area, and of course he thought he owned it, But when that first happened, I heard a few things. I heard him talking to Tim Horner one day. What are they doing? I heard him, just little things like that. But to me, he was very professional. But I think he was a little bit, wasn't so sure as to one of those things. When I go back to the morale, he was going to work and do what was best for the business. But also he was kind of looking out for White Boy. And I understand that, because here's the new fresh meat in the territory, me coming in, and then he's going to go out there and get beat by me, So there was a little bit of underlying animosity there, as far as kind of why am I doing this? But by the same token, when that took place, he done it professionally, started cutting the interviews, and we worked together. It was just easy, fun working. We done the matches. Here I am trusting this man with my body. And he was going to pin me as many times as he can. All I had to do was pin him once. So basically, I went out there and sold. That was around the time, Ricky Morton said, Bobby, watch how I sell. get that sympathy. And I'm by no means putting myself in a category of Ricky Morton when it comes to selling. But when he tells you to watch and to sell, you watch and you learn, Yeah. So, but to get back to Tony, Tony was at one time, I think he was going to go to New York, and I don't know what everything happened. But he ended up staying in Smoky Mountain Wrestling too. And I don't, of course, we all know he eventually went there as the TJ Hopper or what have you.
Yeah.
I know they was interested at one point early on to bring him up, but I don't know at what capacity. So there was a reason why he probably stayed at Smoky Mountain, because it was his home area. But yeah, he was easy to work with. He was fun to work with. He was very helpful. After we got over that first couple of weeks, and I started sitting in production meetings. Cornette, invited me in, so I'd see the TVs for the next 3 or 4 weeks. And Tony was the same way. When he got to the town, he knew what's kind of going on. So he got into it as well because he saw the bigger picture of it. He knew it wasn't just going to be, okay, Bobby's going to beat me and that's it. He knew there was, greener pasture, so to say. And there was many times, and I'm not saying it's bragging or boasting or anything like that, I'd go out and sell gimmicks. And he had just gotten a boat at the time. He had moved, was living on a lake, and he'd got a boat, and I didn't know him all that well, other than we was working together. And I'd take over, and I'd give him a few dollars off my gimmick and say, hey man, put some gas in your boat this weekend and have a good time, or this coming week, or what have you, And I think he really appreciated that, because I was by no means getting rich, but when you're selling, say you do $100 to $300 worth of gimmicks, say you did $300, and you give a guy $30 and say, hey man, put some, just a kind gesture saying, hey Tony, put here's $30 from my gimmicks, put some gas in your boat this weekend. He looked at me a lot different, like, this guy's been around a little bit. He's not such a bad guy. He's not just a young kid,
Yeah.
So it worked out real good. As far as being underrated, he had worked in, several territories, and, he got pushes in several territories. And like I said, at the beginning, it was probably a little bit hard for him to say, do I have to do this to himself? But in a bigger picture, he's like, yeah, this is best for business, because at some point someone had done that for him and helped him. So, I always, I had a bad word with Tony one time, and it was about an hour from my house. I had the strap, and him and I was standing at the gimmick table. The doors weren't open, and he said something, and it was just kind of smart ass. And I was having a bad day, to be honest with you. I only had to drive an hour away. He was driving about 4 hours away to this town, and I looked at him and I said, Tony, there's the title. I had it laid on the table, ready to, for the gimmick sales.
Right.
I said, there's the title and there's the ring. There's no one here. Me and you, brother. Let's go. If you're that fucking serious, if you really think this is yours. And I just said it more or less. I was just being an asshole myself, because I really took what he said the way I thought he meant it.
Right.
And he wasn't going to back down from what he said, and I wasn't trying to be a badass when I said it. I said, there's the title, there's a ring, let's go, let's fucking go. And he looked at me, hey Bobby, hey man, I'm just fucking with you, man. You're wearing the strap right now, and something to that effect. And he eased up, and I think what it was about a half work, half shoot when he said it, just joking with me. But he also realized, because of my laid back and the way I normally am, that when I came snapped back at him like that, he was like, it wasn't like I don't want to fuck with you thing. It was more like, man, that Bobby must be having a bad day. He took it the right way. Like, you know what I'm saying? He didn't take it like I threatened him. He took it like, and that was the only time. And again, I don't think it was personal or business. I think it was just two guys talking, and I said something that he could have taken either way. And when I said it, he said something to me, I took one way.
Yeah.
I said something back to him. He took it the way that, like I said, he probably thought, fuck, that's not normally Bobby's comeback. He'd fuck around with me or something before he'd say, let's get our asses in the ring and go. And he just backed off a little bit. And again, not in a fight. I'm not trying to bury him and say no, it wasn't. He just took it the way like, yeah, damn, that's you. It's all right, Bobby. Fucking, I was fucking with you, kind of thing. And we actually left the gimmick table, and I had someone working, staying there selling my stuff, and someone was going to be selling his, and people wasn't in the building. We would actually walk back in the locker room. Once we got in the locker room, I recall being in front of him, and I turned as soon as he come in. I just gave him a hug, and I said, "Tony, man, it's all good, right?" He said, "Oh yeah, man." And it was just one of those things where it was just no big deal, you know. So it was just one of those things. We just didn't hug out in front of the people at the gimmick tables, but you know, I just let him know I was having a bad day, and he was like, "I was fucking with you," and it is all good. So, but yeah, I think he was underrated a little bit, and I think he helped my career a whole lot. You know, early on, do what he done for me. Once again, it speaks to the volumes for the professionalism.
Yeah. I asked that question specifically because, you know, as we're again just in the first few months of Smoky Mountain, and him and Ron Wright, to me, besides Cornette and the Heavenly Bodies, they're like the shining stars so far at this point. And so that's why I asked that question, because as we watch it, it's just a pleasure to watch those two and how they interact with Ron Wright and Dirty White Boy. And it's just tremendous TV when you watch it, even, you know, over 20 years later. So that's why I asked that question.
Yeah.
Hey, they discontinued that Beat the Champ title. Do you recall why they did that? Were you there when they discontinued it?
Actually, I was the last Beat the Champ.
That's what I thought. That's what I thought. That's where I was going with that.
For what it means, by God, I'm still the Smoky Mountain Beat the Champ TV champion, motherfuckers. And I'm not coming out of retirement to defend it. You know what? It was just kind of, I think it was just kind of written out because I think, I recall one of the last TVs we done, and I'm not so sure that they knew it was the exact last TV, but I think they knew it was on its last legs. And I don't know if they had 5 or 10 weeks of booking left at that point. So when it faded out, that was just, I know when it shut down, the last 4 or 5 bookings that I had worked probably, I don't know, 5 or 6 shows, we'll say, and then I had like 5 or 6 left, and Corny called me and said, "Bobby," they was way out towards more of the towards middle of Tennessee, a little bit further west than what we normally done on a couple of them, and that's when Terry Gordy and Tommy Rich and some guys, and he said, "Bobby, you know, would you mind staying home?" And I'd already done the TVs and stuff, and he said, you know, some blah blah blah, and so I kind of knew things were happening. Without giving too much away.
Right.
And so I think it just one of those things where it was no use to try to put a, you know, Beat the Champ TV match together when it had other stuff they needed to do to finish up, you know.
I gotcha.
It's just kind of scripted out, if you would, the last, I'm going to say maybe the last 12 weeks. That would put us down through, you know, the last probably 4 to 6 tapings, something like that.
Yeah.
So...
Just that makes sense when you phrase it that way with that belt. So, okay.
I went actually real briefly. I went to a TV and I teamed with Robert Gibson once. I wrestled Tommy Rich once. Me and Robert wrestled, I think, Gordy and Rich, and then I wrestled Tommy in a singles and this and that. So, you know, I was being used on the TV.
Right.
And basically, to my knowledge, I don't think they had anything, like I said, on those last couple of TVs, I don't think there was any mention of the you know, hey, Bobby, you got to go out there and defend to Beat the Champ kind of thing.
Right.
That had happened. I think I went out and done one last match with Killer Kyle before he went down to Atlanta to do some TVs. And he was finishing up at Smoky Mountain. It seemed like I'd done that, and it was probably, man, it might have been 16 weeks. You know, it might have been 3 to 4 months since I had done that. And in my mind, it might have been only 8 weeks, to be honest with you. But yeah, even though I was doing some TVs, that wasn't even brought up. Like, hey, you know, go out there and have a match for the, you know, the last one I had, I beat Killer Kyle. I had the title, and I don't think I'd done another one after that. And there probably would have been another, you know, 8 to 12 tapings or hours of TV, if you will. I'm sorry, not tapings, but
right.
But you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious more than anything.
Yeah.
Hey,
and I love about it. So thank you for asking.
No problem. Okay, everyone, that was part 1 with Bobby Blaze, the former Smoky Mountain Wrestling heavyweight champion. I really had a good time talking to you, Bobby. Thank you so much for coming on the show. And like I said, we're going to have to do this again sometime, man. You are a great guest. Very, very fun to talk to. just a fun time. So we got part 2 coming up next week by Bobby Blaze, and I'm really looking forward to it because Bobby, again, just such a great guest. And, again, thank you, everyone, for checking out this week's episode of the show. It was really, really a fun show, the top 5 on top 5 wrestling belts of all time. I just want to thank all of the listeners, man. I know I mentioned a couple of Twitter feeds while we were going through the episode, but you guys really, really are why we do this. And I'm just thankful, man. You know, it's Thanksgiving. I'm recording this on the morning of Thanksgiving. And, look, without you, there is no show. So from all of us, and Doc and Harper like to play heel because they're just heels. Harper's a heel in wrestling. So when he says the things he says, just trust me on that. He's just bullshitting. He's really not like that. Anyway, we are very thankful for having you tune into us weekly. You guys are great. And please, we would appreciate some 5-star reviews. So like I said, during the body of the episode before the Bobby Blaze interview, we need some more 5-star reviews. So hook us up. Hook our brother up with some 5-star reviews. Hook us up on Pro Wrestling Tees. We got the 20% off right now. Just go to Pro Wrestling Tees or go to MikeMills.podbean.com. And at the very top of the page, they're the Booking the Territory Pro Wrestling Podcast Tees link there. You know, you can support the show through Amazon. I didn't mention that earlier, but we got our Amazon referral link at the very top of the page, too. And then we got the PayPal link. So if you want to give us $1 or $2, we'd appreciate it. If not, we still thank you and appreciate you tuning in to listen to us each and every week as we just blabber on about pro wrestling and bury WWE and talk about our top 5. So thank you again. You guys are the greatest. We love you. Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving. If you celebrate Thanksgiving, happy Thanksgiving. If you don't, have a great Thursday. Have a great week. And that's all I got for now. So for Mike and Doc and Harper, book it, bitch. But don't forget, we got the promo of this week with Ron Wright. And again, the audio is not quite great, but we got the promo of the week with Ron Wright at the very end of this episode. Good stuff. And I got the YouTube link in our show notes for you that you can pull from there so you can actually watch it. Other than that, for Mike and Doc, you know what we always say when we get out of here? Book it, bitch.
I have a very special need to have Mr. Ron Wright out here. Mr. Wright, in my opinion, was totally responsible for...
I tell you, Mr. Sullivan, we got a whole lot of stuff we got to have done here today. We've got all of these flags of all these other countries and everything draped up here. Get out there, man, and hang my flag up here. Put it down here. I want everybody to see it. Hang it up right here on the television to see it.
No, I don't want that flag on this set. I don't want that flag on this set, sir.
We know it does. That's our flag, and we've got as much right to have our flag out here where everybody can see it as anybody has.
Well, first of all, let me tell you something, sir. For the actions of this man in tearing up a ring area recently that we saw on television, you are now fined $5,000.
I'm not believing this. I ain't never heard tell such stuff in my life. I want to tell you something. I've sat out here before and told all of these people in past TVs what Ron Fuller has had done to me. And you know, he come out here, not one time did he deny that he's had me fined, paid that referee off to have my stomper disqualified down there. That was the reason he wrecked the place. I've had a hard time keeping this man under wraps to keep him coming out here, tearing this whole studio up and all these people in here with him. Now, let me tell you something. I found out something else this past week. I couldn't understand why all of these big challenges has been coming in. We've had everybody. Crusher Blackwell's come in and issued big challenges to my man. Austin Idol's come in and issuing challenge to my man. I found out just about an hour ago back there. My beloved Tara Tanaka called me. Ron Fuller's been calling all over the country, all over the world, putting up $10,000 bounty to some man that come in here and take my beloved stomper out. Did you believe that? I've never heard tell of it. It's just underhanded tactics. Anything that's going on anywhere in the world. But let me tell you something. Now I know what that underhanded Ron Fuller's trying to do. He's godless. He ain't man enough to come try to do it himself. And I know he's been wrestling all over the world on the weeks that he's not down here trying to pay people to come in. Let me tell you something. I've got some of the strongest men in the history of the world. I asked up right here together. And it's going to take more than $10,000 to have anybody put my men out You understand what I'm telling you? Let me tell you something else. Now that you've got me mad, you may be laying the fines on me. You may be hurting my pocketbook. The worst thing you're going to do with these fines, you might hurt my heart a little bit. But you got her blowing a bullet, and it's not going to stop with fines because I'm not even going to try the song I beloved Stomper Down. You understand what I'm telling you? And let me tell Ron Fuller something. These fines that you had put on me, Mr. Ron Fuller, I want you to get that camera up here and I want you to get a close-up of me. I'm telling Ron Fuller in the wrestling world today, you $10,000 fines and you $5,000 fines, you're not going to stop Ron by me. And you're doing what I intend to do. You
Well, first of all, I don't want this flag on this set. That's number one. I don't want the flag on this set. You know, somebody move this flag out of here. I don't want it on this set. That is for sure. That's more about where it belongs. Disheveled and certainly not on this set. Well, here's a very, very special word, so pay attention.